Minugajeb. How is everybody today on a nice little snowy day? Sorry for the delay, but we will get started with our meeting. And I would like to call the meeting to order at 8:39 a.m. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope it's gonna be a great year. With that, we're gonna start with invocation. Charlie is not here right now, so Asema has been given to Mike Fairbanks, and Mike will be doing our invocation this morning. Miigwech. Miigwech, Mike, thank you for those powerful words. With that, we'll go on to roll call, please.
Michael Fairbanks, Mike LaRock, Farron Jackson. Oh, Leonard Fine, April McCormick, Robert Deschamps, Kevin Dupy, Robert Abramowski, Catherine Chavers, here, Tara Gishik,
Here.
Melanie Benjamin,
Here.
Sheldon Boyd,
Here.
we see him.
Here. Can you hear us, Sheldon?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Miigwech. Okay, next we have approval of the agenda. And Beth?
We have one small change to the agenda. The consent agenda has changed, so we're going to have to go through it individually. But President Chavers has asked us to move it to the front of the business for the day. So the resolutions.
Okay, we have to approve the agenda first, so we'll get that going. We will need to remove legal. Phil Brodeen is not able to be with us today due to a family commitment, so we will remove legal off. And then we offer our sincerest apologies to Jean Skinaway for the typo error on her presentation. It should read Jean Skinaway. Our sincerest apologies for that, Jean. And that's all I know that we have right now.
President Shavers, I would like to add, I have some either to new business or informational. I have this is a short presentation on James Fairbanks. He's a White Earth enrollee. Yep, they're gonna be naming a ship after him on February 21st. I'd like to add that. I could do a little small presentation on it, so
Great. Okay, we'll put that under new business.
either that or information.
That's fine.
New
Business would be
New business be fine. Thank you.
Miigwech, Mike.
What about the List Act resolution? I don't see that.
Is the List Act resolution on here as well? Under resolutions, we have the enrollments.
We have the MIFPA. We have to add that as well.
Okay, we'll add the List
it-
Act under resolutions as well.
And at the end, we need to decide meeting dates.
Oh, tentative meeting dates, is that what you said?
Meeting dates for our next meetings
Next meetings and legislative dinner.
and legislative dinner.
Okay. Don Goodwin has her hand up. Don?
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Bonjour, I'm Dawn Goodwin here. I'm in White Earth. And I just wanted to say that this platform is not good for community involvement, for one. And then, is there a place that we can get a copy of the agenda? I know there's not much on there today. However, it'd be nice to be able to have a copy of the agenda somewhere. I looked on the site and all there is the announcement.
Okay,
So I just want to say that. And then I would like to see, and I'm sure everybody would, well, not everybody, but many people would like to see old business back on the agenda.
oh, okay. Thank you, Don, and we'll make sure we can have some way to get the agendas on for those that are attending by Zoom. Miigwech.
Yep. And old business. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda? With those changes. Moved by Rob, is there a second? Second by Lenny, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Melanie has to leave to attend a funeral today, so I've asked to move the resolutions up first. So we have our resolutions for enrollment. Beth, do you want to take care of that?
Sure, yes. First up, we have 3424 White Earth eligibles, 29.
Okay, we're not doing consent because there was a change to the Mille Lacs listing that we have in our book as of yesterday, and it's not noted on here, so we will be changing it, so. Okay, do you want to do consent for everything other than Mille Lacs? Okay,
Yes.
okay, then we'll do Mille Lacs separately. Okay. Do we have, go ahead, Beth. What we'll do the consent first. Do we have a motion to approve the enrollments with the exclusion of Mille Lacs? At this point, we will do those separately in consent agenda.
I'll make a motion for consent agenda resolution 34 through 50 in enrollment.
Motion by April, is there a second? For consent, second by Lenny, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent.
Aye.
Oops, sorry. Motion carried. Under enrollment for Mille Lacs, we need to remove resolution 53-24. Per Mille Lacs request.
Okay. There are 3 remaining enrollment resolutions, 5124 Mille Lacs eligibles, 31.
Moved by Melanie,
Second.
second by Sheldon, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 5224, Mille Lacs ineligibles 20.
Melanie? Are you still there?
I'll move.
Moved by Sheldon. Is there a second? Second by Lenny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Mille Lacs, oops, I'm sorry, go ahead, Beth.
5424, Mille Lacs no parent enrolled 1.
moved,
Oh, yes, you're right. 5324. Mille Lacs no parent enrolled.
The
Second.
number will change on the
Move.
Mille Lacs no parent, moved by Melanie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sheldon. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Okay. Do you have the?
MIFPA? Changes?
Were there changes? Okay. Resolution 5424, support 2024 MIFPA legislative changes. I can read the resolution if you wish.
Yes, please.
Whereas the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Executive Committee is the duly elected governing body of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, comprised of 6-member reservation, Boys Fort, Fond du Lac, Grand Portage, Leech Lake, Mille Lacs, and White Earth. And whereas the legislative subcommittee did meet on January 10th, 2024, and did recommend Tribal Executive Committee approval. And whereas the Tribal Executive Committee is the duly elected governing body of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe and is comprised of the chairpersons and secretary treasurers from the 6 constituent bands of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe. And whereas the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe recognizes the need to strengthen Minnesota law to ensure the protection of the best interests of Indian children and the stability and security of Indian tribes and Indian families. Whereas representative from most of the 6-member reservations and other tribes in Minnesota have participated in creating legislation to strengthen the Minnesota Indian Family Preservation Act and other sections of Minnesota law subject to the Indian Child Welfare Act. And whereas the Tribal Executive Committee has reviewed the proposed changes to Minnesota law for the 2024 legislative session and believes the changes will strengthen protections for Indian children, families, and tribes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Tribal Executive Committee does hereby support Minnesota House files and Minnesota Senate files to be determined when they are determined. As those file numbers are not yet available. We do hereby certify for the foregoing resolution. Oh, we have to vote on that.
Madam Chair. Yesterday, the legislative subcommittee, we had talked with, and Phil was there, and he said he's going to make some slight revisions to the last so that we're not referencing the actual files, but we're still supportive of the legislation. So just so the subcommittee is aware that we will take those blanks out. Phil will take those blanks out and then the wordsmith it a little bit, but so the resolution still supportive of the changes, but just won't reference specific legislation.
Thank you for that clarification, Lenny. Any questions on the resolution? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve resolution 54-24, support 2024 MIFPA legislative changes. Wait, no. Moved by Bobby, seconded by Mike Fairbanks. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Next is resolution number 5524. The resolution for a list act recommended by the legislative subcommittee yesterday. Whereas the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, MCT Tribal Executive Committee is the duly elected governing body of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, which is comprised of 6 federally recognized tribes of the following reservations: Boyce Fort Band, Fond du Lac Band, Grand Portage Band, Leech Lake Band, Mille Lacs Band, and White Earth Band. And whereas the Tribal Executive Committee is comprised of the chairpersons and secretary treasurers of the 6 bands. And whereas pursuant to section 104 of Act of November 2nd, 1994, Public Law 103-454, 108, stat 4791, 4792, and other delegated authorities, the Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs, published a list each year in the Federal Register which identifies all federally recognized tribes. And whereas in the notice published in the Federal Register, Volume 87, FR 4636, on January 12, 2023, the Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs, set forth the current list of 574 tribal entities recognized by and eligible for funding and services from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, by virtue of their status as Indian tribes. And whereas the Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs, listed the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe and the 6 bands as follows, quote, Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, Minnesota, parenthesis, 6 component reservations: Boyce Fort Band, Net Lake, Fond du Lac Band, Grand Portage Band, Leech Lake Band, Mille Lacs Band, White Earth Band, in parenthesis, end quote. And whereas the 6 bands are separately recognized as tribal governments by the United States, and each maintains a government-to-government relationship with the United States, which is evidenced by separate self-governance agreements, separate gaming compacts, separate funding and grant agreements, separate treaty rights, and the separate acquisition of land into trust for the individual bands pursuant to the Indian Reorganization Act. And whereas in recent years, county governments and other previously acknowledged that the constituent bands are separately recognized as Indian tribes, have disingenuously argued that the list of federally recognized tribes published by the Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs, recognizes only the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe and not its constituent bands as federally recognized Indian tribes, notwithstanding the specific inclusion of each of the reservation in the list. And whereas the published list has been used by some federal agencies to allocate equal shares of funding to tribes, putting each of the 6 bands and the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe at substantial risk of being allocated only a fraction of the resources that are being allocated to tribes that are listed separately. And whereas the list format used by the Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs, to identify the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe and the 6 reservation tribes creates considerable confusion and does not accurately reflect the long-standing and continuous government-to-government relationships between each of the 6 bands in the United States of America. Now therefore be it resolved that the Tribal Executive Committee of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe respectfully request the Assistant Secretary in Affairs to revise the annual list of federally recognized Indian tribes to more clearly show that the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe and the 6 reservation bands, Boyce Fort Band, Net Lake, Fond du Lac Band, Grand Portage Band, Leech Lake Band, Mille Lacs Band, and the White Earth Band, are each federally recognized Indian tribes under the laws of the United States, and be it further and finally resolved that in making the foregoing resolution revisions, the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs list each of the bands separately and individually in the alphabetic list of tribes, and list the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe as follows: Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, Minnesota, comprised of 6 reservations, each of which continues to be separately recognized: Boyce Fort Band, Fond du Lac Band, Grand Portage Band, Leech Lake Band, Mille Lacs Band, White Earth Band. Excuse me.
Again, please. No, just kidding. I just want to give a little back information on this resolution, as myself and other tribal leaders were attending, some tribal leaders were attending NCAI in New Orleans. And it was brought to our attention at that time that the Department of Energy was going to be releasing some tribal economic dollars. And we were told, one of our tribal leaders was told that they are going to be going exclusive, they were going to be using the federal listing for the distribution of those dollars. And so that meant that because our bands aren't listed separately and we're under one Minnesota Chippewa tribe, the Minnesota Chippewa tribe would only receive that funding, not the individual bands. And so at that point, we felt it was immediate that we needed to get something going because we could also present to NCAI, and then also MAST was the following week after to gain support. We know too that we know it can be done not legislative, we know it can be done legislatively, but we're looking at the BIA to do an administrative change for this. Whether they will or not is a question. The other thing is that by doing this now, each of the tribes, anytime there's any funding coming through the federal government, it won't be specifically one lump sum to the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, because that has happened in the past. Our legislators and senators have been, I guess, hammering into the funding agencies that, you know, there are six bands or 6 tribes under the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, and they need to fund them separately rather than just one Minnesota Chippewa tribe. And so when the resolutions were passed by NCAI and MAST, a verbal, not a verbal, but a written vote through either email or text was sent to the tribal leaders while we were at NCAI, and a majority, and they all said yes for this. So we move forward, and now we just need the formal resolution to present to the BIA with regards to listing the tribe separately in the Federal List Act, which is done every January. Every 2 years is updated or whatever. So, but we're hoping for an administrative change through the BIA. So that's kind of where we're at. Every year, yeah. Lenny and myself attended a meeting supposed to be with Assistant Secretary Brian Newland, but we found out we weren't going to meet with him that day. But we did bring our case to them, and we'll see where it goes from there. That's just some background on how this all transpired so quickly. Moved by April to approve. Seconded by Lenny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, discussion. Michael Fairbanks.
Yeah, I was talking to my delegates, and, you know, we're talking about this again, and, you know, the remedies that you were discussing earlier about not legislatively, but through maybe the Office of Self-Governance or one of the tribal agency or one of the government agencies that, you know, I know that one thing that I've been talking to them about this, our delegations, and I think it's something that I know that they made some recommendations to me a minute ago about if we motion this, if White Earth agrees to this, it's only for the monetary part of it, not.
Sorry about that, Jolene Danell, White Earth. But our questions to Chairman Fairbanks were on this action that it pertains to just the division of finances. We don't want to see it as a platform to be used in the enrollment issue. So if it would sunset or end after the finances were dispersed, that's what we're asking, is we don't want it to be used to go forward for supporting that all the tribes are in agreement of division in the whole enrollment kind of stuff. But that's what our questions were.
Hey, oh, sorry, they're checking the batteries here. You must think we're gonna talk a lot. But anyway, understand that, Jolene. Thank you for that. I think once we're listed in the Federal List Act, we don't have options on what we can say or do with it. because it's in the Federal Register. And without having Phil here, any legal aspect, Kev, you want to say something?
I think if I understand what Mike is saying and what she has said, in no way, shape or form by doing this, does this make any kind of separation principle from the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. The Minnesota Chippewa tribe would still be consolidated by that point. It's not just about a financial principle or the piece about enrollment. It doesn't make any separation whatsoever at this time, because the Minnesota Chippewa tribe is still consolidated at this point, if that makes any sense.
If I can just add on to that, in the meeting that Kathy and I had with the Bureau of Indian Affairs in December, we made very clear to them that the purpose of this resolution is solely for the external relationship that the individual bands have with the federal government, and it has nothing to do with the internal government structure or decision-making, and doesn't impact the internal government or decision-making of the individual bands or the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. And the revised constitution and bylaws of the Minnesota tribe continue to stand unaffected by this act or by this resolution or this administrative move. The only thing that this administrative move does is that impacts the individual relationships that the bands have with the federal government, and recognizing that that direct relationship actually exists, because it does exist, as the resolution notes, through longstanding self-governance agreements, 638 contracts, and other direct relationships that the individual bands have with the federal government. And so that's really all it is it's an external relationship thing. It's not an internal governance or decision-making thing for the tribe or the individual bands. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin and Lenny, for that. When you go to meetings and stuff, you hear them say about there's 574 federally recognized tribes. That's incorrect. There's 580. Because they're not counting the 6 bands of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. So there's actually 580 federally recognized tribes. So with that, we have a motion on the floor by April and seconded by Lenny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? One silent? Motion carried. Okay. Is that the last of our resolutions, I believe? Beth? Yep. Okay, if we can go back to the minutes, we have minutes from October 25th, October 30 and December 11. If you could all take a minute to look at those or review those, and then we'll move on forward with our agenda after that.
Kathy, special note, I'm sorry, I should have brought this up when we were revising. The December 11th, 2023 special minutes were tabled at legislative.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay.
Which ones were tabled? Just the legislative ones. Yep. Okay,
Okay, so these are still good to go.
we're good to go. I apologize. And I recognize that there's a typo in the minutes for the special meeting held in December in St. Paul. Jane and I were both participating by Zoom, and the audio was really terrible. So we accidentally put Sandy Skinaway in 3 places instead of Jean. So my apologies to Jean, and we talked on the side there, so I'll make that correction with Jean. December 11th, but otherwise there aren't any other administrative changes to the content of the minutes.
Motion by Lenny to approve all 3 meeting minutes with the changes to the December 11th meeting minutes as mentioned by April. Is there a second? Second by Farren. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, silent, motion carried. Quarterly reports.
Thank you, President Shavers. The administrative report for the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe first quarter fiscal year 2024. There was 201 new tribal members approved at the October 25th, 2023 TEC meeting. Our staff has issued enrollment numbers for those new tribal members, status, date of birth, blood degrees were entered in our progeny database for the new enrollees. All the approved band transfers, blood degree changes or corrections, relinquishments from that TEC meeting on October 25th have been completed. During this quarter, 362 hard copy documents have been prepared, scanned, and saved to tribal members and progeny. And on September 20th, 2023, the Enrollment Review Committee heard 6 enrollment appeals. And we still have approximately 19 that have been moved for extensive research. So they have been extended. Next hearings are scheduled for this January 24th, 2024. Title reconciliation as of December 31st, 955 total tracts have been reconciled with 210 remaining to be reconciled. On page 2, you'll see the chart of those reconciliations. And also some of the activities that this staff member has completed. You'll see the number of researches and requests that have been done during this period. On page 3, this is the tribal operations or enrollment work stats for October 1 through December 31, 2023. This includes all reservations. It's not broken down. You'll see the number of activities that we did for everything from address updates, CIBs, Indian preference forms, DNA requests, all of that. These are our statistics, our numbers of what staff accomplished during the quarter. Page 4 shows the number. We have a total of 9 data requests that were produced. You'll see the different types of data that's requested of our office that's produced for each of the bands. Next is the number of eligibles, 201 eligibles. So letters go out for each of the reservation or each of the bands enrollees, new enrollees, and those are the numbers. Ineligibles, there was 126 that quarter. So all those letters have been prepared, sent. And then any band transfers, relinquishments, blood degree changes, no parent enrolled, any dual enrollments or disenrollments are noted in that activity as well. And the attachment A on page 5 shows the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe membership from October 2023 through December 2023. A total of, at the end of October, there was a total of 40,882 members. End of November, 40,849. End of December, 40,829. And then each is broken down by reservation as far as the total number of enrollees. Now that's a fluctuating number every quarter due to deaths that are reported, new enrollees, transfers, et cetera. And so it's a fluid number that is constant. The second part of attachment A is just a breakdown as of the end of December of the adults and minors, the total number. So adults, total number 34,644, minors 6,205, for a total of 40,829 as far as tribal membership goes. And each reservation is broken down by adults and minors. That concludes my report.
Okay, check. Joe, how do we monitor our members that pass? I mean, do they, if nobody notifies the office or anything like that, then do even members that pass out of state? Do they, I mean, is there much notification that comes in? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, it's I would say inconsistent. Sometimes we'll receive a notice of a death of a member that passed maybe 5-6 years ago. So in our database, we maintain them as a current enrollee until we do get official notification. And that's either through an obituary, official death certificate, verification from family members. We only make those changes unless we're notified.
Okay, okay. Another question, how many of our membership do we track or monitor? How many of them are 55 and older?
We can do that. Our database, we can query those numbers, and those typically come under, if you look under the data requests that we get, those special reports, we generate those upon request.
Okay, so maybe next meeting we can have some of them numbers be important, 55 and older.
Are there any other categories besides that? There's any number, of course, that we can, but if there's, any, like I said, there's, if that's something that we want to include consistently, we can do that.
Yeah, just maybe even go back as far as 50 and over. 50 and over. I know our life expectancy for our native people have climbed somewhat, but we're still we're really on the bottom still on them statistics. So it's kind of important that we kind of, keep track of that as well.
Certainly. And that we can include that as part of the report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This is Cheryl Edwards, Fond du Lac. One of the other categories that I'd really like to see is an age category of 75 and over. That I think would help us to do some kind of predictions.
Yes,
Thank you.
and certainly when we do these reports, if it's part of this, it will be as of the reporting date. So typically, a lot of times when we get the special requests like this, it's for a specific purpose. Maybe one of the programs, elders, for example, an elders program is doing applying for a grant or a contract. And they need to know that. They need to know how many live on reservation, how many live off reservation, what's in the service area. Those are the type of reports that we do. Those do take time, but those come in as a special request. But as far as what we can do for the reporting on this particular, the admin report, we'll just do it as of the end of the quarter.
I know that we had talked previously, and I can't remember, so help me out, having memory issues here. That the Wilder report was quite a while ago. What year was that done?
2012 and 13, and then I think they produced the report in 2014, 2015.
Okay. Is that something that we might want to look at again? Because when I look at these minors, there's a lot of tribes with not a lot of kids, youth, minors under 18. And that's kind of alarming to me. But I also, Melanie, I was very impressed with your, are you still on, Melanie?
Yes, I'm still on.
I attended the State of the Band for Mille Lacs, and can you give us a little information on your dealings with the Wilder?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So I did numerous community meetings with the membership to give them the updates of what was occurring at the Minnesota Chippewa tribe on the
We lost you, Melanie.
report. Oh, okay. Am I still there? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I just stepped in a different section. Area update brought the 2014 Wilder report, and it showed that Mille Lacs is going to increase membership until 2038, and then after that drastically declines. And so one of the requests from a tribal member was we need to have that that report updated specifically for Mille Lacs. So we contracted with Wilder to go out and again, ask that same information. What is your enrollments? How many kids do you have? What's your blood quantum? And do you have other Indian blood that's not included in the MCT? And so currently we had over 500 people respond. And so as of, I think yesterday was the deadline for people to fill out those surveys. So we really got a good turnout in terms of that response. And so
Breaking up.
and also share that with MCT. And so to show what we did, but it's very interesting and necessary for us to talk about this enrollments to ensure that we provide as much information as we can to our members.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. You kind of broke up there, but basically your membership, you're doing a contract with Wilder to get your own information and see where you're at. But I
Right.
think that'd be a good idea for the MCT, but maybe what we can do is try to obtain some funding, grant funding or whatever, to see how we could fund this through the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, this is Chairman Fairbanks from Whitehurst, and Whitehurst, we take a lot of pride in our enrollments. We have about, what do we have, Mike, about 6 or 7 employees down there that do a lot of data, do a lot of work with us, and they actually help MCT. So what I'm kind of getting at is with the other bands here, you guys all have access to Progeny too. And as I was asking Joe, I said, well, can't everyone run their own reports? So we're putting a lot of pressure on Joe's small staff. It's like, I think we're going to have to get this table here and see how we can help Joel, all of us, not just Whitehurst. How does all of us help Joel out? I think that's one thing that I've had discussions with Beth and Joel about this is that, is this a discussion coming up is, we sit here and we talk about enrollments every meeting that we have, and I don't open up a can of worms and we talk about the 2 other tribes out there that have moratoriums on their enrollments. How is that constitutional? So, I mean, these are things that it's just something that's, it's floating around the room. It's like, we all have questions about the next 10 years, the next 50 years. These are things I think as leaders at this table, we should be trying to help MCT, their administration side, because they don't have lack of funding. They don't have the manpower to do what we want to do. It takes away from everything else that they're working on. So I think that all of us at this table, we gotta start helping. We gotta start pitching in. We've been pitching in. So I know that's something that, I just want to say,
Madam President.
Miigwech, Mike. But yeah, I think that in order for us to, it'd be nice to have up-to-date data. That's always good to have. So maybe what we can do is, Melanie has started her own for Mille Lacs, but I think the individual tribes could go back and talk with their people and see, what is the cost of the Wilder survey? Can we do it? Can we not? I agree, Mike. We need to help out as much as we can. So, but just an update on that, because I really like the idea that you broke out the minors on here, because that was kind of eye-opening for me to see that. And now we'll see the elders in that. So, that's a lot. That's good data. So
So
thank you for
Kathy,
that.
I have,
Yes, Melanie.
can you hear me? I have one closing statement.
Go ahead.
And one of the questions we asked the members, how would you like the decision of enrollments to be made? And the majority, high majority of the people state that they want Mille Lacs members to make their own decisions on Mille Lacs enrollments. And so that's something that our people are very adamantly going to support, that any decisions that impact their own individual families and how enrollments move forward, that they want to make that decision. They don't want other individuals kind of influencing or putting on how things could be done. And of course, that's additional discussion as we go forward, what that means in terms of that. So I just wanted to note that that's what our members are stating. I mean,
Madam President, can I?
Go ahead, Lenny.
Yeah, if I can just, so the conversation is revolving and there's a lot of issues. And I just want to point out two things for the TEC to consider about where we're at with enrollments. The first thing is not to lose sight of resolution 1532 and that process, and I don't even have the updated resolution number from the action that was previously taken. But that process that's moving forward, or should I say stagnant with the Bureau of Indian Affairs right now. I think at one of the previous meetings, we had talked about leaders going down and meeting with regional BIA staff. I'm not sure if that happened. I mean, I would be more than happy to go meet with them, but I'm not sure. I never got a notice, and so I don't know if other leaders did go down and meet with them already, but we want to keep the pressure on them to move forward with the secretarial election process. And then the second thing is to remember as well, I think it was at the October meeting, we talked about committee, putting together a committee to review and revise the enrollment ordinance and to update that. And I think that there was very brief discussion about that at the December meeting. But I mean, these are things that I like with, I know the day to day, I know there's a lot that goes on. I know everybody is busy, but I don't want us to lose sight of those two things, you know, that are important when we're talking about, you know, the changes and the need that we need, or what we need to do in order to move forward. You know, there's processes and steps that we should be following, and I don't want us to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, you know, or lose sight of of what steps we should be going through in order to move forward. But we have to move forward. You know, we've been talking about these issues and this enrollment criteria for a very, very long time. And I think that the people of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe definitely want to see some movement, and they want to have a voice in what that movement looks like. And so that's where I really feel we can move forward with this committee and then also with the secretarial election. Thank you.
Miigwech, Lenny. Okay, we can talk enrollment all day. And we will move on in our reports. Thank you, Joel, for your report with education. Billy?
Bonjour, Ogama, bonjour, Ginawa, Chanaquatico, Indigenous cause, Magan Dodame, Gawababaganaka, Gandunjaba, Billy, and that is my English name. In my report is going to be brief. In addition to the written report, I wanted you all to know that as of a couple days ago, I haven't heard anything since, is that the funding piece for especially the new projects that are waiting to find out if they're going to, what their funding will be. We don't know. I had reached out, I'd emailed the BIE, SIE, JOM specialist for our region and asked if we had an idea of what that funding was going to be. And the response I got back was that no, that we don't know, that Congress at that point hadn't passed the budget, and that the continuing resolution was getting ready to expire soon. So if it's changed since a couple days ago, I haven't heard that yet. It's especially of interest to the new projects because they've never had JOM before, and they don't have carryover funding to sustain them as the existing projects do. The other thing that I was going to bring up is that I think at the last Education Subcommittee I had mentioned that one of the projects, War Road, was one of the struggling ones. It had a new education director that had just come on and was learning the ropes. And I'm happy to say that I have, they've reached out and I'll be doing a parent committee training and they should be back on track with everything and in an active program again. Lastly, the Tribal Nation Education Committee has meetings next week on, there's a executive session meeting on Wednesday and then an open session on Thursday. And some of the items that are on the agenda include the academic standards. The Pellsby is going to be doing a update. Pellsby is the licensing board for teachers, and they have included. I'm glad they're doing an update, but it has to do with American Indian language and culture licensure. So we'll be getting an update on what that is. Minnesota Indian Education Association Conference is scheduled for April 17th through the 19th in Hinckley. Other than that, I'm open for any questions, otherwise meet you.
Any questions for Billy? Great report. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that we did hear the quarterly reports for the education and also administration. Good job. Next, we have BIA Minnesota Agency, Gwen Johns, Acting Superintendent.
We haven't gotten correspondence that she would be here.
We will move on then. Thank you. McWitch. Next, we have update constitutional reform meetings, Cheryl Edwards and Sally Fine Date. Who's you?
Thank you, Cheryl Edwards, Fond du Lac. Sally is trying to make it up the hill over at the Savage's house, so she'll get here if she can. Is she? Awesome. Okay, great. I'm glad you're here, Sally. So I'm just going to read the update that was approved by the delegates at a meeting last Friday. And then we can take questions if there are any. The first update is on an enrollment ordinance that was supposed to be on today's agenda, but has been moved forward, I guess. The MCT Constitution delegation agree that any attempt to pass an ordinance to amend the Constitution is a gross violation of the Constitution, according to Article 12, which clearly describes the process of constitutional amendment, and that is through a secretarial election. Our membership shall determine any revision change to our Constitution using this process. And our delegation voted on that. And as you can see in the printed version here, each delegation voted yes to that statement. And that's why it's on our update today. Also, the delegation's finance subcommittee has had no response to our letter dated Friday, December 1st, 2023, regarding the request of restoration of funds allocated to Constitution reform in the amount of $8,450.53.
Why is an ordinance that's put into place a violation of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution?
On examining the issue, it's about the approval process to an ordinance and who starts the ordinance. And if you look at that and break it down, in fact, I have an actual document to look at to answer that question. This document was emailed out to all the delegates last night. But what the examination shows is that a resolution or ordinance enacted by the TEC is subject to the approval of the Secretary of the Interior. So it has to follow a
That's not
certain,
true. You're talking about Article 15, right? Manner of review.
yes, Article 15.
Any implementation of something with the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution that is going to change the Constitution goes under the point of manner of review. A ordinance that's applied does not change the principle of the Constitution. So I'm asking again to make a general statement and get all kinds of people involved, which is fine. You're making a claim that it's a violation of the Constitution, but that's not an answer why it's a violation of the Constitution. Because if you read Article 15, manner and review is the point of change in the Constitution. A ordinance does not change the Constitution. A ordinance reinforces the existing articles of the Constitution. So again, I have to ask, why is that a violation?
I would like to ask if Carol Janik is on the Zoom meeting, because she would have a wonderful explanation for that. She's more articulate on the subject than I am. She is one of our Fond du Lac delegates and an attorney. Carol, could you answer? Sally and Carol, you both have permission to talk.
Bonjour, this is Sally Fine Day. I'm actually at the Savage residence and stuck at the bottom of the hill over here. But what I wanted to make a comment about today is that the bottom line of what we're putting forward to the TEC today is that the people are already working on revising the MCT Constitution. There has been a referendum vote that went out to the people that said get rid of the blood quantum, and also let the tribes decide on who should make those determinations, the criteria for each membership tribe. And I think that what the bottom line is, we just want to follow the process. That's all. We're doing the process. We want the TEC to follow the process as well. We're afraid that if we change the ordinance now, that it will appear that we're circumventing the Constitution. And we don't want to do that. We want the people to really have a voice in what's happening. And that's the bottom line. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Sally, that's a good explanation.
An explanation to the question I asked? What ordinance is being changed?
If you're changing an enrollment ordinance, that would be the ordinance that's being changed, right?
I'm really confused right now. So can somebody tell me when we are gonna change the enrollment ordinance? To do what the request of a secretary election to do things. Part of that principle of the secretary election would to be changed an active ordinance to reinforce the voting process of the secretary election. So again, I ask, what ordinance are we violating, and how is a violation of Constitution in the principle of ordinance when the only thing is the manner and review of Article 15? That applies to Article 12 to get to the point to have a secretary election. I'm really confused right now. So you're making statements are being made out to our membership is saying that putting ordinances in place is a violation of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. So is the election ordinance a violation? If we are to look at Article 4, a uniform process of an election, an ordinance has to be put into place to inform that principle to carry on or to enforce that article.
Hey, wait, Carol, please go ahead and if you could help answer that question.
the concern is not to any issues that reinforce a current ordinance. The concern we have is if an ordinance is changing language within the Constitution. For example, changing the criteria of enrollment in Article 2. It is clear that Article 10 amendments is the only way to change language within the Constitution. Now, it hasn't been real clear exactly what your proposed changes are going to be, because frequently when we ask the question, we don't get a response to an email or a letter. So the concern is that we are totally against ordinances changing any language within the Constitution, not a concern about reinforcing process or procedures.
Equal to that, I just got to reiterate my statement from the beginning. The statement was this that was given. By making ordinances in the Minnesota Chippewa tribe is a violation of the MCT Constitution. That's what was stated. I stated under Article 15 of the Manner and Review, any changes of the Constitution become a principle of that, where it has to be under that piece. The general statement that came out was by putting any ordinance in place in the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution is a violation of the Constitution. I'm responding to the initial statement. You are saying the exact same thing I just said, Carol.
We are talking about this enrollment ordinance issue only when we're talking about this.
That is not the statement you made. And so now we get into the enrollment. To change the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution to go into a secretary election, do you not have to change the ordinance? And that will be done by who? It would be part of the secretary election, right?
Exactly.
And that's done by the people then, right?
Yes.
Not the TEC.
Yes.
Miigwech.
And so that brings us to that referendum. And this isn't part of our update, but we did have a referendum. That referendum is binding on the TEC. And to follow that process, the next step is for the TEC to call a secretarial election on the referendum questions. And of the referendum questions, question number 2 is exactly the ordinance that the TEC is talking about. So I'll leave that there. So moving on to the next subject on the Constitution education. Oh, Patty would like to say something.
This is Patty Straub from White Earth. And you know, the referendum, the 2-question referendum that was just made, we would like to reiterate that White Earth is supportive of Resolution 3215 going forward as passed by the TEC. Miigwech. What? The referendum was non-binding. That's the wording.
I believe that when they used the word non-binding in developing the referendum, that what they meant was that a referendum is not binding. It doesn't make the amendment change. That's, I believe, what they meant. Now, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but once a referendum is held, the next step is secretarial election. So I think we've got a lot of thinking and a lot of talking to do on that subject. Constitution education, our updated statement on Constitution education. The curriculum development is complete, and we're waiting for the videos to be completed. I know I've said that a couple of times, and it is still true. The Alliance document is being shared widely, and people are asking questions and making comments. The edits are being made. The 10th draft has been posted to the Fond du Lac website. And And what we would like to ask is if we could have the MCT website post each of the drafts so that the people can see the changes that have been made since the beginning until now. So that would be our request today.
You would, Cheryl. I just want to say that to that part. I thought it was already granted. So I'm confused about that part unless you're requesting to the TEC from MCT headquarters that it's not allowing to go on the webpage. But the TEC has already granted that to go on any band webpage and the MCT. So that's all I'm saying. It's already been granted before. So I'm just asking why it's not on there.
Yep. Beth? We need the drafts for the alliance documents on the website for MCT, please.
Okay,
Okay,
they just need to send them by email to Jane. Or
okay.
me.
Cheryl, can you send those by email to Jane Brinkman? Jane Bruce, I mean.
Jane
Brinkman.
Bruce.
Sorry, Jane Brinkman is another Jane I know. Sorry, Jane Bruce.
So I think they're.
Miigwech.
Yeah.
Can we link them to the FDL page?
You know, we link to the LFDL webpage, but we want people to have additional access. We need all of our members to see this. Many members won't go look at the FDL.
I'm just saying, would it be okay if we link to the original documents on the website from our page instead of uploading the document? They live on a webpage somewhere, right?
We have the current document on the FDL website. We do not have the previous ones there. I could add them there as well.
Good.
Then you could point there, but what I'm telling you is that our membership, many folks that are not from Fond du Lac don't want to go and look at the FDLconstitution.org website because they don't think it's for them.
Oh, okay.
So we need MCT to actually post these things because it is an MCT thing.
Okay, Miigwech, Cheryl, that's a good point. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so we'll get those posted and they'll send them to Jane by email and then we'll get those posted. So everyone has access. I can understand the Fond du Lac being them thinking it's Fond du Lac. So G. Miigwech for the report, ladies. Next we have Jean Skinaway. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. You guys want to take a 10-minute break, 15-minute break right now? Let's do a 10-minute break. People want to get going on the roads, and we'll see if Sally ever gets out of the, if she ever gets out of the hill she's stuck on. Okay, if we can get going. I don't know where everybody went, but I know I saw Jean earlier. Now she,
You don't. That one?
yeah, no, right here. It thinks the tribal leaders and Jean. Okay, Kevin and Mike. Oh, there's Jean. Okay, now that we got everybody back at the table and we're on our next agenda item, Jean Skinaway. Welcome.
Miigwech. Anin Jean Skinwayne Dishkaz Wasasi and Dudame Gamarong Gagamag and Dunjiba. I am the chair of Sandy Lake Band in Mississippi, Chippewa, McGregor, Minnesota. Miigwech for your time today. I'm here to discuss relations, communications, issues, and concerns we have been that have been arising frequently between Sandy Lake Band and the MCT's constituent band, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. I can say that some of the working relations have been cordial, and we all know that we are related either by clan or blood or just kinship as an Anishinaabe. So we must always strive to treat each other in a good way. The background is on January 31st, 2020, this Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Tribal Executive Committee enacted Resolution 6420, which states the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe is in full support of the efforts of the non-removable Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa, and hereby presents this resolution of support as the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa continue their efforts to have their federal status restored. On March 2022, after a failed attempt by Rice Lake Band member to propose a resolution regarding the 1855 treaty boundary for Sandy Lake and East Lake, the Chief Executive Office at Mille Lacs Band distributed a mailing to community members and cited the TEC's 2020 resolution and attempted to create disharmony in the community. In the packet, I attached a copy of that Chief Executive Office letter. The Sandy Lake Band are blood tied to the land at Sandy Lake and have always been able to prove our lineage through BIA lineage charts and annuity rolls. We cannot and will not go elsewhere. On July 11th, 2022, at Grand Portage, Minnesota, this Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Tribal Executive Committee enacted Resolution 6322, which states fully supports and fully recognizes the boundaries of the original Sandy Lake Indian Reservation as reserved in Article 2 of the 1855 treaty. I addressed the committee that day and expressed the need for the resolution as boundary status was previously being navigated through the federal bureaucratic channels as by previous chair Sandra Skinley, but due to exigent circumstances being mining encroachment, I asked that the bands come together to protect our monument and water at Sandy Lake, as the 1855 treaty signers did for future generations. It should be noted that previous to the vote, I was made aware that language of the original resolution that we presented that day or earlier, it should be had submitted language of the original resolution the Sandy Lake Band had submitted was changed to reflect some of the land that Mille Lacs Band had purchased within the noted boundary lines. I was not provided legal counsel at that time, and I knew only of their purchased land within the 1855 treaty boundary. This resolution was needed, and we secured it that day. On March 11th, 2023 at East Lake, I attended a Mille Lacs Band community engagement regarding the Water Over Nickel campaign by Mille Lacs Band Department of Natural Resource Commissioner Kelly Applegate regarding the Talon Metals Tamarack mine. This is the first time the Sandy Lake Band has heard of anything from the Mille Lacs Band regarding the campaign. I was advised that previous meetings occurred and members of the community expressed concerns that the 1855 treaty boundaries were not mentioned in the draft publications. Several concerns were raised and community members signed their names to a list requesting legal representation to ensure that federal 1855 treaty rights would be secure throughout the Minnesota DNR process. To my knowledge, there had not been any answer to that question to the East Lake community members. On March 13th, 2023, I was made aware that there was a burial at of a Mille Lacs Band member at the Sandy Lake Burial Grounds, which is located on the 1915 presidential executive order land. This is the 28 acres located on the north shore of Big Sandy Lake, set aside for Sandy Lake Indians residing thereon. In the packet, I submitted our documentation on that. I sent a signed letter by email to Mille Lacs Band Department of Natural Resource Commissioner Kelly Applegate to express the need for discussion regarding land use and burials. I advised that recent burial at the site and overzealous use of snowplow machinery caused damage to our sugar camp structures, but thankfully we were able to locate our kettle under snow and it had not been damaged. I requested the Mille Lacs Band to find other accommodations for burials as the land is finite and historic, and advised that we would be available to discuss the matter with the band assembly as needed. I did not receive any answer. I submitted photographs also of the damages. This land was never marked as a burial site as long as I could remember. And in the packet, I also submitted past land use and surveys from 1940. I think that might be under the second tab for the where the deed and stuff is located. This land was never marked as burial site as long as I can remember. It was surveyed for homesteads in 1940s and 1950s, and until recent time, there only happened to have local residents buried there. Unfortunately, the Sandy Lake Band has not had any input as to who is interred at the site. There has been little discussion with the Mille Lacs Band since the letter and photographs regarding burials at the Sandy Lake Presidential Executive Order lands. Maple sugar and wild rice camps continue as they have in the past. In June 20th, 2023, I submitted a request via Mille Lacs Band District 2 Representative Wendy Merrill for an in-person meeting regarding the right to know on Talon Mine and the Water Over Nickel campaign. I cited our 1855 treaty reservation lands and requested to know what was being done regarding the water quality standards I had been inquiring at MCT, TEC, level since the year prior and what the Mille Lacs Band was actually doing about it. This meeting had not occurred as I was not contacted. The one day I was informed of a meeting, it was the day prior and I was unable to attend due to a previous commitment out of the area. I was not informed of any other arrangements or provided written response to my inquiry. On July 25th, 2023, I was advised by local residents of a potential Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife meeting with Mille Lacs Band Department of Natural Resource and Minnesota state legislators in or near the Lake Minnewawa area regarding the Talon Metals Tamarack mine. This is within our 1855 boundaries. I attempted to make telephone calls to the Mille Lacs Band DNR Commissioner Kelly Applegate to attend the local meeting. I was later told by community members that Mille Lacs Band DNR workers were told they were not to disclose information regarding the meeting in the Sandy Lake Minnewawa area that day. On August 15, 2023, I emailed Mille Lacs Band District 2 Representative Wendy Merrill and CC'd both Mille Lacs Band DNR Commissioner Kelly Applegate and Legislative Assistant regarding a potential need for a listening session at the District 2 Community Center for a non-cultivated wild rice crop insurance potentially being offered by USDA contractor. In that packet, I submitted the email. I had previously discussed this with persons in the community, and they advised that there had been insurance in the past when Rice Lake and the refuge was not able to be harvested. I received no response from the Mille Lacs Band regarding the potential for Sandy Lake Band members or descendants to benefit from this program in future. However, the contractor advised that he would surely include the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa status in his final report. In September 11, 2023, I went to the south landing of the Rice Lake and the Rice Lake National Refuge to check the status of the lake and if it had been open yet for ricing. It was not, and the lake was in drought status. I walked out on the makeshift platforms that were placed at least 100 yards north from the landing, and there was little to no water in the lake. And I was heartsick at that, and all the monomen that was not able to be harvested that year. It would be the second time in less than 5 years that I remembered with this lake being alone and this being the worst. After a preliminary investigation of the circumstances of the hydrology and discussion with the refuge management, the Sandy Lake Band Wild Rice Committee and Sandy Lake Band submitted its initial finding with the MCT President Kathy Chavers via email. I believe at that time I submitted that email to everybody on this committee here. I was later advised by Minnesota State Representative Spencer Igo that the Minnesota Department of Transportation did submit notification to the Mille Lacs Band regarding road construction plans for the area near McGregor, Minnesota. He advised that the Sandy Lake Band surely would not have been notified as they were not listed from a notification. The week prior, on September 6, 2023, an email was sent requesting legal assistance regarding the 1915 presidential executive order land on the north shore of Big Sandy Lake. A landowner, William Cook, is seeking to build a 33 planned unit development along the Aiken Lake River and Aiken Lake that flows into the Big Sandy Lake near the reservation. Our concern is decimation of the ecosystem full with monomen by human encroachment, especially by those with no cultural ties to it. The Sandy Lake Band asked for legal assistance in the form of an amicus brief to be filed on our behalf regarding the case. I was later verbally advised by attorney Phil Brodeen that there were no resources available to assist. On October 17, 2023, I appeared before the Mille Lacs Band Joint Band Assembly in Onenia, Minnesota, to address several issues that the Sandy Lake Band had been attempting to get feedback for months. Earlier that day, I appeared at the chief executive's enrollment presentation in East Lake and questioned a 2002 Mille Lacs Band tribal resolution of enrollment of 2 Sandy Lake Band members. Then 2 weeks later, this resolution was rescinded. The chief executive advised that she would submit that to the band assembly that day and discuss it. At this joint band assembly, the individual appeared with me, and she's here today also. As we question the rescinded resolution, we were advised that the matter would be reviewed with the chief executive's office and the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, as all tribal resolutions were sent there for action. Other issues were not resolved as I was not called back for further discussions. Attended checks from individual with Joe Smith at MCT were unsuccessful until I received a phone call from the Mille Lacs DNR, Kelly Applegate, on December 21st, stating that the Mille Lacs band is checking into the status of Miss Skinway's enrollment. Actually, both of those Sunny Lake members are here today that were rescinded from the Mille Lacs band. But okay, so proposed Tamarack mine. Since 2010, the Sandy Lake Band has been seriously monitoring the then Kennecott Exploration Company in Tamarack, Minnesota, and the state of Minnesota's push to lower the sulfate levels. Members had lobbied at the state capitol and during the governor's fishing openers to ensure the voices be heard not to lower the sulfate levels. In about 2020, Kennecott Exploration sold a 2% controlling interest in Tamarack to Talon Metals Corp. But they still own the remaining 49%. Kennecott is a subsidiary of international mining giant Rio Tinto, which is also a human rights and environmental destroyer. According to the recent released environmental assessment worksheet from July 2023, the proposed Talon Metals Tamarack mine will release 1.2 to 2.6 million gallons of processed water daily into the Tamarack River, which flows north into the Prairie River, which then flows into the Big Sandy Lake. These watersheds are all connected and flow with Mahnomen. The Prairie River is within the state boundaries of the 1855 treaty lands of the treaty boundaries of the Sandy Lake Indian Reservation. On December 18th, 2023, the Mille Lacs Band held a community engagement session at the East Lake Community Center regarding the Water Over Nickel campaign. It apparently was only a Mille Lacs Band Department of Natural Resources in cooperation with Cliff Wick and Mille Lacs Band court reporters and videographers that engaged the community with little notice. Community members discussed the need for the Water Over Nickel campaign again to display Sandy Lake 1855 treaty information on the website and boundary as it was enacted via the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Resolution 6322. As of today, the Mille Lacs Band's Water Over Nickel still refuses to display Sandy Lake Reservation 1855 reservation boundary as enacted by the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Resolution 6322. The MCT Exploratory Research and Mitigation. Throughout the processes listed above and having to work diligently with the community derived from the Sandy Lake Band, and that the band seeks MCT-wide multidisciplinary, that being executive, historical, elder, community, women's, scholarly, convention type meetings to be held to discuss the reformation and restoration of the Sandy Lake Indian Reservation. Truth and reconciliation, what does that look like in the MCT and the Mille Lacs Band? And reparations for the Sandy Lake Band. The Sandy Lake Band will consider the buildings at East Lake Community and undeveloped lands at Sandy Lake to be enough. So pretty much we are requesting, with all these wrongs that the Sandy Lake Band endures daily, and throughout historically, for the last 25 years, actually 40 years, we respectfully ask, that this committee start to do these conventions, multidisciplinary convention type meetings to reestablish the Sandy Lake Band as the 7th Minnesota Chippewa Tribe band. Because I don't know how many times, when is this going to stop? I'm not sure if Melanie's here or did she take off again? I know she said that she was going to leave. We were told she was going to leave again. And yesterday, in regards to when I sat in at the Natural Resource Committee, and when I referred to the amicus brief that I asked for to protect our lands from the encroachment of the 33 units. And Phil Brodeen advised that there was, that he wasn't able to help. Yesterday at the Natural Resource Committee, he was excited to help White Earth with an amicus for their CAFO. And, we weren't able to get an amicus for our destruction of monoman beds. That's a double standard here. I'm just, when is this going to stop? So I'm thinking, the people need to hear this, and it gets, I'm asking for the people, can we get this done? Miigwech.
Hello, go ahead. My name's Tashina Perry. I represent the Sandy Lake Band as Secretary Treasurer, even though we don't have no money because we're broke. We don't have any jobs. But the same William Cook, who is now building the 33 units out in Sandy Lake, had offered us free and clear title to the land adjacent to our 32.28 acres. And that which we use as our family burial grounds and has been used as burial grounds in the past. And we have houses and cabins out there. So he offered this 20 acres to us free and clear in the 90s, and it was under MCT's name. And something happened with that. I'm not sure who was Mille Lacs leadership back then. I don't want to speak poorly about anyone when I don't know why they made the decisions they made. But Arthur, I can't remember, Arthur Gabo or something he was on the phone with, and my grandfather, who led the tribe at the time, was pissed off. Why couldn't we get this acreage into our name? Because that's our sacred grounds. That's where we have ceremonies, and that's where we stay when we're homeless, which is quite often because none of us have housing or running water out there. And it's been hard to get the help because it's been an uphill battle from the 90s on. So this land was allotted and sold off, and now each unit is a rich person's house. And that land, that 20 acres, is now worth millions of dollars. And it should have been in MCT's name in the 90s. And we have letters from William Cook saying that he didn't know how hard it would be to give away land just because he wanted it to stay undeveloped on the north side of Big Sandy Lake where the Aiken Lake and river flows into it. So we couldn't be given that land. And Mille Lacs continues to build their people there without our knowledge, which if they visited them, and if they helped us, they don't come to see their dead. They don't leave dishes out, And it's a soft subject for me because that's where our family is buried and we don't get to have ceremonies that we should be having out there. So here, I'll pass this off to Jean because I'm getting upset.
All right, Miigwech. We'll take questions.
You mentioned the amicus brief with White Earth. Yes, that was done yesterday. And in talking with Phil, and Phil isn't here today, but apparently most of the work had already been done with that amicus brief. You had your attorneys do it, Mike. So with that brief, that basically it was just a sign on for Phil to do that because all the legal work had already been done. So that with that amicus brief, that's what Phil had mentioned to me. I just wanted to let you know that. That's why he was okay with taking that because they did the majority of the work already. So that was done already. You know, with regards to the convention that you're talking about, right now, we were just talking about the, oh my gosh, come on, Wilder survey and trying to find funding for that. The MCT is really does not have the funding it used to, let's put it that way. And so these types of conventions, or even with our Constitution Convention Committee, we used a donation that was given to us by the Lutheran Church. So eventually that pot of money will run out as well. So how to fund things and do those types of things are really becoming an issue with the MCT for lack of funding. So right now, we're fortunate that we're able to fund our constitutional delegation. At some point in time, though, I know at first we relied on the tribes to do the funding for the travel and hotels and that kind of thing. But so with regards to your convention type meetings that you want, those do cost money and organization, and right now staffing is an issue at MCT as well. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but clearly right now I don't feel we're able to do that even for projects that we want to get done, like the Wilder survey and stuff. So I just wanted to make that comment on that in the amicus brief.
That's about what we expected to hear. And we expected to hear that. And there's other tribes with more money who we can ask, but this was just kind of a step, a starting point. Yeah, we're trying to follow the, you know, it's a procedure, it's a paper trail. The people do need to know that this is occurring, you know. As I stated in the natural resource subcommittee meeting, people are uneducated. You know, this farce has been going on for so long. You know, the Sandy Lake history, you know, is not there. You know, we are being appropriated. The Sandy Lake Band is being appropriated by the Mille Lacs Band, and it's been ongoing. And it's, you know, there is no history there. You know, our history is being appropriated by the Mille Lacs Band, and it's being appropriated by the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. And that's plain and simple. We heard that yesterday in the natural resource subcommittee meeting, and it's being talked about with the Talon Meadows, and that's our fear. You know, we are living near, you know, we are going to be
we're being usurped. We're being usurped and we are living near this mine, this proposed mine. And we are at that, you know, we're almost at that mercy. So we are fighting for our lives here, you know, and it's pretty much, you know, it's coming to that point to where we are having to call upon the people of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe to take a stand with us against, I don't want to say against this TEC, but something needs to be done. You know, the people need to stand and be heard, because it's getting to that point to where we are saying, you know, we need to be heard. And it's you know, and it is it gets frustrating, you know, so.
I just want to say one last thing. Not that we don't appreciate the resolutions of support from the MCT. We appreciate that. We needed that. We needed that 30 years ago, and thank you for finally doing it. And also the boundaries. Thank you for recognizing our boundaries. And right now we just need to find out what we need to move forward with this and to return home and to build what we need, you know, our community back. And in the spirit of unity and that we are all one people, you need to understand that central Minnesota is a great place to be. We're on a 3 trifold aquifer and we're next to a mine that could decimate that, and we're in the wild rice territory. And we're in the biggest ceded territory that hasn't yet been approved in the Supreme Court, the 1855 ceded territory, and we'd like to see that happen soon. So why wouldn't MCT want to secure that area for all of us as a whole? Because eventually we're all one people, you know, next 30 years, everyone from each tribe could be living there. They could be a Sandy Laker. Why wouldn't you want that? That's the best place for Indians to be. It's perfect location. I'd just like to go home. And so I'm done. I'd wrap it up. Thank you.
We have Tammy Skinaway who has her hand up as well, so then we'll go on to the other ladies there.
Sure.
Tammy, are you there? Hang on, we're gonna make it so you can speak. Okay, we put the audio on. Tammy, are you still there?
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, me good. Thank you, everybody. And I feel I have the need to say a few things. That my father was born and raised at Sandy Lake, and that is what I consider home. And many of you know me, and I just wanted to offer a little bit. I'll be brief, but with my personal experience in trying to bring awareness to this thing that, you know, a lot of people shy away from, but it's root issues that we all face, and it stems from here we go, with the lateral violence and the lateral oppression, and it all, you know, revolves around relationships. And for me, it ties to the 7 grandfather teachings, which are there for us all. And I will continue to say this and try to bring awareness for the healing. And like my cousin there, I would like to go home. And so I've been traveling around from White Earth to the Twin Cities, helping out our relatives wherever I can, as well as try and stay fed, try and keep my car running, try and, you know, keep my mind going with prayer and stay healthy, mind, body, soul. So I just wanted to offer that as a homeless individual who's educated with a bachelor's degree. I pray for everybody. And the reason why I say that is I'm unemployed, and I would like to be an employed person. The MCT, you say you're short-staffed and whatnot. Hopefully you've raised that $13 an hour pay scale so I can try and apply there, and I will. So there's many of us who are able to work and really want to help out the people, help out everybody. As my cousin, I believe that was her, said before, we are all one. And I have the faith and I have the hope that we can do this. And we are in 2024 right now. We just went through a hell of a time. So I would love for us to, you know, just love on each other, you know, a little bit more and understand what we're going through. So chi miigwech to everybody, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Tammy. Gonna use a mic?
Can't hear me loud enough. I just want to stand here behind these Ikwe Ogama. They need answers. And so are we going to give them any answers or what's the deal here? I don't want them to feel like they are alone because like they said, we are all one. So can we get answers? I mean, do it like, what's the deal here?
Okay, I thought you were gonna speak, that's why. I know that, we had sent a letter to Jean, from the Minnesota Chippewa tribe regarding, the issues that Sandy Lake has with Mille Lacs Band. And that, we had, stated that these are internal, and you said it too, these are internal between the Mille Lacs Band and the Sandy Lake. As a, and I'm just, this is my personal, not President Chavers or anything. This is Kathy Chavers, tribal band member for Boyce Fort. I'm not comfortable in going on somebody else's land and trying to make a decision that concerns them. That's my personal opinion. And I understand that you're frustrated. I understand that I see your passion and I see the history because I've learned a lot through the history and the teachings that Macha and everybody has done. And I hate to say it, but the federal government has set up a process for us that works against us. And there is that process, you know, and yes, we did recognize the boundaries and do the resolutions. We're doing, I think what we're doing is what we did there was what we could do as a group. But as a personal tribal member, I'm not comfortable stepping on other tribal people's land and making a decision because I need to make those decisions on my own land. So that's just me as a tribal member. I'm very uncomfortable stepping somewhere because they'll say, who are you to be there? I know, but I respect the sovereignty also of the band. Yep. Yep. 1854 is not Sandy Lake. 1855 is Sandy. Yes, I know, but the whole state of Minnesota is ours, right? So I agree. But with regards to that, you know, we've given you the tools, I think, as the MCT to pursue federal recognition with these resolution supports. And you know, that's how we are supporting you in that effort. And so with regards to the Talon nickel mine, it sounds to me as though you're both really, I mean, and tribes should be against copper nickel mining. And I just want to say that because we know the damages it can do to the water and the rice and whatever. I mean, we've had those issues up north, we've had them all over. And so I think that to me, it looks like you both support the not having the mine there and that you both don't want that mine there at all. And so you have a common denominator there. You're both against it. That's good. That's the way it should be. But the working together comes between the Mille Lacs Band and yourselves. And so I don't know where to go with that.
Okay, actually, it doesn't just include, it just isn't between us, it's between the 1855 bands. Because it will go through the bands, so this includes the White Earth Band and the Leech Lake Band, because they will be going through those treaty lands. So they, you know, I've stated that before, you know, Leech Lake needs to be on this. White Earth needs to be on this. So. And I hope that they were part of, you know, this working group with the EAW, and not just Fond du Lac and Mille Lacs. Do you know if they were White Earth and Leech Lake? Were you guys a part of that Minnesota DNR assessment, the working group? Oh, no, it would be at the Minnesota DNR. When they were doing the EAW, the worksheet. Yeah, the EIS, the worksheet. Back in July, they would have had to, there's a native group, maybe Kelly could probably say who was all on that working group. Yeah, as far as I know. Yeah, so there's a process that the Minnesota DNR is doing to review an environmental assessment worksheet. And they sent out notices to all of the Minnesota tribes to be a part of that. And mostly the tribes that are around the area there are participating in reviewing that environmental assessment worksheet. So that's what that is. I asked who from Leech Lake and who from White Earth then, because they would have to be a part of that as it goes through the 1855 treaty lands, you know, on the proposed route that they plan on going, you know, on rail through the 1855. Do you know who is on that working group from White Earth and Leech Lake? No, I don't. And Leech Lake doesn't know and White Earth doesn't know?
It would probably be our environmental attorney, which we haven't hired yet, so. We have a couple environmental attorneys that we have a contract, but we are currently going to be hiring an environmental attorney straight through the band. So I'm not really positive who would be on there. I know Dusty Roy, our DNR director, might be there, so I'm not really positive. I'll have to check and see. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it might have been our environmental director, Brandy Toff. She's usually, you know, on a lot of these issues like that. So, but we'll have to check, because I don't know if I missed that, or if a lot of times we were kind of multitasking too. So she usually comes back and briefs the council on these issues, you know, as EAWs or whatever it would be. But we can find that out.
Okay, Miigwech. To say I have the utmost respect for Jean and the efforts that you're putting forward, and I've heard along the way, you know, your deep passion and desire, you know, for the efforts that you're putting forward, and I just wanted to start with that. And you know, there's communications, there's phone calls that we've had, and I've seen you at many of these meetings, talked with you over breakfast before, and we do go over some of those issues that you presented in the letter. And the issue that partly Mille Lacs has is you come to us asking us for some pretty
deep information about strategy, about that would occur from one tribal leader to a government, to a tribal sovereign nation government. And we try our best to provide the information that we can. But until you get the federal recognition and I know, you know, as part of the recognition process, you have to demonstrate that, you know, you're operating a government, or at least, you know, attempting to, and that you have had a government in place and whatnot. So I understand when you send those letters to us and ask for these things, but you know, please know that I can't, as the commissioner of Mille Lacs, engage in some of these really deep strategic conversations that you want to have until you get that status. And you know, the band isn't standing in your way to gain your federal recognition. There's a couple things on December 11th of 2019. A letter to MCT President Kathy Chavers from Ms. Skinaway requested that the TEC support the draft resolution, expressing full support of the non-removable Sandy Lake Band's efforts to restore their federal status. Individuals identifying as enrolled members of the Sandy Lake Band included enrolled members of the Red Lake Nation or unenrolled descendants of enrolled members of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and a few enrolled members of the Mille Lacs Band. The TEC voted to support the draft resolution presented by Ms. Skinaway with minor edits, which became TEC Resolution 6420. In the letter, Ms. Skinaway wrote, "We have exhausted all administrative remedies and now seek the support of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe through a resolution of support." In fact, Federal District Court Judge Donovan Frank dismissed a lawsuit brought by Sandy Lake against the U.S. Secretary of Interior on July 1st, 2011, writing, "The court concludes that Sandy Lake Band has failed to exhaust its administrative remedies because it never went through the only administrative remedy available, the Bureau of Indian Affairs federal acknowledgement process." And I believe you are fully aware, so I don't need to go through every step, or, you know, you've been doing your research and you know the process there. So in short, the Sandy Lake Band, they have three paths to pursue and achieve their goal of federal recognition. The first one is apply to federal recognition as a tribal government with the Bureau of Indian Affairs by going through this federal acknowledgement process, or they call FAP. Pursue an act of Congress that confers federal recognition to the Sandy Lake Band. And three, pursue a court decision. There are no other paths to pursuing federal recognition for the Sandy Lake Band. It is now up to the representatives of Sandy Lake to choose one of these three avenues and pursue their efforts to obtain federal recognition if they choose to do so. The TEC, as Kathy was alluding to, of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe really has no role in any of these processes except for the resolution of support that was provided. The multiple complaints against the Mille Lacs Band are really not matters of concern for the TEC, but constantly they're brought here in front of this board. And the complaints are mostly of an internal nature, mostly about communications, disagreements about burial sites, jurisdiction over land issues, and whatnot. And the band, we feel there's no place on the subcommittee or the full TEC for these issues to be on the agendas. The MCT comprises of many historic bands amalgamated into one of the 6 bands that are part of the MCT. So with that, that's just my response for now. And like I said again, Jean, I have the utmost respect for your efforts and just wanted to say that much. Miigwech.
Okay, we have, is it Don? Who's got their hand up? Don Goodwin? Has her hand up or has had her hand up? Don, can you hear us?
Yep, I was just waiting for the unmute. Buju, yes, I just wanted to also commend Jean on her work. And I just want to echo these words again. We need to come together like Mole Lake. Otherwise, they're going to mine, they're going to do that copper sulfide mine. So we can't drag our feet. This needs to be a priority. We all know how important our Mahnomen is. We all know how important water is. Nibe, my life. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Don. Jean?
I wanted to say, miigwech for the words, Kelly, but, again, it's, forever, I get that, they like to downgrade it, they dismiss us. It's forever and a day, they'll forever do that. But the Sandy Lake Band has been there, we're a historic tribe. It needs to be in the books, and it's just it's and that's why I came today, and something needs to happen, and when is that going to happen? And when I ask for this, you say there's no money, why can't these tribes here, why can't there be any money? Why can't the resources come up for this?
I guess we're just waiting for Mille Lacs to speak up because they're the only ones who haven't really said anything. Melanie's not present and Sheldon's pretty quiet.
Melanie did leave, for the funeral, which she, apparently there was a funeral that she was gonna attend. I can't remember. I don't have my phone. Drumkeeper? I can't remember what it was, but there was a funeral today, so she did leave the meeting. So she's not here.
Okay. But when it comes to setting meetings with us and making time for us and setting aside reparations for us or helping us, connecting us with a lawyer, with the people who can help us, since we're all just struggling to keep a roof over our heads right now, that would be an amazing help. That would be everything we needed. So if Mille Lacs could delegate some funds to us. Or at least set a meeting with us for a future date so we can talk about it with their band assembly. About how we're going to move forward together or separately, I mean. Because it's something that needs to be discussed.
I can chime in here just. a
Go
little
ahead,
bit,
Sheldon.
And offer some of the processes that we have in place here and within the assembly. And some of the things are that Kelly and myself and I mean, I support, what you're trying to do here. It's don't want to stand in your way, and to a lot of the folks there within Mille Lacs band law that it does include that area in there. So Kelly and Wendy and the folks in that area there are kind of caught in the middle of kind of the direction folks are going here. And Kelly is, as a DNR, that area is included in his duty to protect, and all that stuff is online. Again, not don't want to get in the way of your efforts. Go for it, and the folks here are kind of the consensus is federal recognition is very difficult. And so what, as I sit here and think, I think you could probably find a sponsor and a district rep and maybe address the references to Sandy Lake within Mille Lacs Band law, because again, it's referenced in there and has always been referenced in there for quite a while. And if you can get the elected folks to change that status somehow, to kind of help your efforts, just see if you can get those guys to agree and draft a bill that would make changes to statutes that we're all bound to follow when we do kind of our business here. And that may be a starting point, is what I can offer, is maybe a draft bill internally here at the band here to kind of start the process, either a draft bill. That's what I can offer there. And the local rep there is Wendy Merrill, and that's the starting point for that area there. Wendy Merrill is the representative from up that way, and we can start that process internally here at the band assembly. That's what I got. Thanks. And staff here is just letting me know that there are, to kind of get things rolling here, we have within the processes here, you can fill out a public testimony sheet here and get on the agenda, get a rep to get you in there and just get things started.
Miigwech, Sheldon.
Thanks.
If I can ask, after the Sandy Lake Band appeared and received our letter of our resolution from 2020, how many internal letters did the MCT receive from the Mille Lacs Band in regards to the Sandy Lake Band?
I can't answer that right now because I don't know. Gary was in at the time too, so I don't know if Beth would know, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Because I was shown, this letter, and in it states something about us not being members of the MCT, and I argue that because the Mille Lacs Band won't enroll us. That's plain, we've always said that. The Mille Lacs Band will not enroll us. We had that, and we've argued that before, the resolution from 1996 that said all members of the Sandy Lake Band are forever and will forever be known as Mille Lacs Band members. That never happened. We were never enrolled. Throughout all those years, we were never enrolled. We were never, and we have 2 members here today that were enrolled, but rescinded 2 weeks later. And I sent, those, that enrollment for, that resolution, I sent that in December. What happened with that? I sent that, and that member is here. She was calling all week in December asking Joel why, what happened with that, because Mille Lacs Band told her, you have to ask MCT, ask MCT why they didn't honor the resolution. It's on MCT. And I was like, no, I was like, Mille Lacs Band needed to give her, needed to give her the enrollment, number and everything from what I understood. But they said, no, MCT needed to do all that. They needed to approve it. And I was like, huh. So it's back and forth there, and then they got rescinded. So, but that's the letter that I seen today where it says Sandy Lakers aren't even members of the MCT. But yeah, that's true. We're not, because Mille Lacs Band won't enroll us. So, but from 2020, we cannot get any response from the MCT, it seems like, but we still try to work with you guys. So we appreciate any actions we do get. Miigwech for your time, and we'll hope for a better new year, and we wish you guys well. Miigwech.
I'd like to add a little history to what Mille Lacs been asking. Back in 1988, a good friend of mine who has passed on now asked me to go with him to the TEC at that time. His name was Clifford Skinway. He was very sick. He did what the gentleman said to do, to go through the process with the BIA. I think they're still waiting for the BIA to give him the answer, because he passed on without getting an answer from them. So for them to go again, they'll probably just sit on it again, just like they're sitting on our request for that 3215. So what are they supposed to do when the BIA doesn't respond to their needs, or the TEC just gives them a letter of support and doesn't really advocate for them? What are they supposed to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Frank. I really understand the BIA process, which is don't get anything done. Because just as an example, on a minor issue, it took 6 years for us to get an answer. Minor issue, simple thing. I would check and see where that answer for Clifford's, if that ever did come through or what. Because it needs to be addressed, because the BIA has a responsibility as well to answer. If Clifford never got an answer before he passed, then that needs to be looked into. Richa? Do you have your hand up?
Buju, Miigwech, I can't say any more on that particular issue, but I just want to answer from my point of view and what I had learned on the answer to that question. So first off, I just want to say I heavily believe in sovereignty and self-determination. We're not here to fight with anybody. When we first began to come here, our fight was always with the federal government, and we came here for support, for support. Now, back to this ways to become federally recognized, I'll keep it very brief. So yes, in the 80s that we came before the tribe and they told us to go the other way. And we did, like Frank said. I really appreciate his words, because it reminded me of this brief thing I want to tell you is, so we went before the BIA through that FAP process. And in the end, they sent us a letter, and said, you didn't exhaust your administrative remedies. You can't fit through this FAP process. So that's about in the mid 90s to late 90s, maybe 1998 roughly. I'm not exactly sure. The ladies probably could find the documents. So eventually the people raised the funds and filed a lawsuit in federal court, because that's one of the ways. in the end, like the one gentleman had said here, and like I was telling Phil last night, what did the end of the court case say? It didn't say we were crazy. It didn't say we were wrong. It said we didn't exhaust our administrative remedies. So we went through FAP. It failed us. We went through federal court. They said administrative remedies for the second time. So we went back to FAP in the mid 2010s, right? What did it come back to say? You didn't exhaust your administrative remedies. We pleaded with the Secretary of Interior. Eventually, a gentleman by the name of Monroe Skinaway got a response. What did the response say? Because there isn't only 3 ways anymore. There's more than 3 ways to become federally recognized. Things are changing. That was in the 80s and 90s. That's where the laws were. So we went before the Secretary of Interior because they had recently recognized 7 tribes under the previous administration. They sent Monroe a letter and said the administrative remedies. So we went down one trail. We came before you early on and you said, go down that trail. So we went down that trail. They said, nope, you didn't administer. Go back down that trail. So we filed the lawsuit, and so eventually when we figure out what is that administrative remedy, solicitors from the Department of Interior, lawyers, experts, other tribal leaders everywhere said this body, this Minnesota Chippewa tribe is the administrative remedy that the federal government keeps sending us to. Again, we're not here to fight anybody. Originally, we all just came to get support in our fight with the federal government to restore our treaty, protect our lands, and save our reservations. Be great.
Miigwech Macha. Miigwech Jean. Okay, moving on with the agenda, tentative meeting dates for next meetings and legislative dinner.
Yesterday, we had talked about the legislative dinner a couple of times and we threw out a date, and that date wasn't gonna be good. And so we're looking at for a Tuesday, Wednesday within February, early March. We ran up against, you said 4 days in Grand Portage, so the 28th is out too. So the 27th. Okay. And so Mayak is the week before. Mast is the week after, the first week in March. And so we're into the second week of March, which they go on a break. And then we come back at the end of March again. And so it's better for us to hit them at the beginning of the legislative session, rather than near the end. So check your schedules for like that 11th through 15th of March.
The 14th is Tribal State Relations Training at Mille Lacs. 13th, I don't know if anybody has anything scheduled February 13th, but that's only a month away.
Yeah. No, March 13th.
Oh, March 13th. I'm sorry. Okay.
2 months.
Yeah. Second week in March is TBEC.
TBEC, okay.
Where is that?
Where?
We're at Mike. DC. March 19 or 20?
March 19 or 20?
That works. March 19 or 20?
Kathy for Boysport. 20 is a RTC meeting.
Where is the
Thank you.
February MIAC meeting gonna be? Do Do you know?
The February one? February's at Boys Fort.
Okay, because in the past, they've done the MIAC meeting in the cities in conjunction with this dinner. That like, I know that's happened at least twice.
Yeah.
Where they've had, you know, the MIAC meeting, you know, at the Intercontinental during the day and then the dinner is that evening.
That's right.
So I don't know if that's something to entertain, because I appreciate what Beth had said earlier about getting together earlier in the session. Sooner rather than later to get our priorities in front of the legislators.
Would we want to have our legislative dinner then in Boys Fort?
No.
No,
I'm
no, no,
ask-
no, no.
I'm asking if we could invite MIAC to say, hey, what does that look like for MIAC to reschedule their meeting from Boys Fort to the Intercontinental, and then we'll still be in St. Paul, and then I don't know if I don't know if that throws off their meeting schedule or what, and maybe it's impossible, but.
I know that they
Sure.
schedule their meetings out a full year in advance, and so I see Shannon back there. She's saying that's not probably
Okay,
something we want to do. That's a lot of work
all right.
to
No,
change.
that's fine. I just wanted to throw it out there as an idea because I was thinking about that last night that,
But since they're already, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's fine. I was just saying that's what my thought process was.
Since we'll be in Boys Fort anyway, and we like to encourage the legislators to attend MIAC meetings, we could do the day after the executive session that night.
I
Is it
think
dinner?
we're running into a scheduling problem with Maya. Kevin, is your State of the Band the 22nd? So we were gonna run yeah, so with MIAC, we were gonna try to run it's not gonna be able to be a 3-day meeting. We were gonna go into the evening for some of the meeting because Fond du Lac will be having their State of the Band on the 22nd and a holiday on Monday.
We could plan for a pared down dinner. Sometime in that time, that's not such a big event. With key legislators, if we would like to have the dinner, but not have the whole pomp and circumstance of the dinner.
Oh, sorry, okay. Oh, that works then. Okay. Sorry, Kevin, I had you on the wrong date for State of the Band.
March 13th. March 13th is on the table.
Okay, let's go with March 13th. Are you guys okay with that?
March 13th.
Come on, Mike. Fairbanks?
When is Easter Passover? Does anyone know? That's when the break is. The break is. Easter Passover is when the break is. I just don't know when that holiday falls. Or that event or that.
March 12th. What about March 12th? The 13th is Tribal State Relations at Red Lake.
Oh,
March 12th is a Tuesday.
Red Lake to the cities.
cities to Red Lake. Hey, it's Minnesota.
Passover is in April.
Okay, so how about March 12th? It's a Tuesday. March 12th. Okay. Let's shoot for that. March 12th. Legislative dinner.
And then just for informational purposes for Beth and Jane, I did talk with my staff, Amy and Karen, they're aware. And then Steve talked with his staff, Stephanie and Bug, and they're willing to help out too. So there's 4 people from Leech Lake that are willing to do whatever needs to be done. So we'll just make sure you guys are connected via email
Yeah,
to
we
help
should
out
meet.
administratively.
They should come over, or we should have a little meeting to sit down. Okay, great. We also have March 12th. Okay.
Okay.
For now.
Okay. Now.
The next is our next meeting date. We're usually at the end of April, and it's looking like the 24th and 25th of April. I threw out some dates. Jane, do you have that document with all those dates that I threw out? Okay. Okay. So those are in the packet, and I guess we would just look for approval on those. These dates I can start sending out to agencies that are asking, the liaisons are asking for our meeting dates. The only one that is statutory is the July 8th date, which is the 1-day meeting, and that'll be in Boyce Fort in July. And then the other dates are near the end of the month. Which is traditionally, as you can see from above, what we've done.
Everybody okay with those meeting dates? Are located in the back of your packet?
Yeah, April 24th, 25th is the next one, July 8th, and then October 30, 31. We'll be in Grand Portage in April.
October 30, 31 is Leech Lake. Okay, everybody good with those? Okay.
Language.
Yep. Is that it? That's for the meeting dates?
We have done the legislative dinner, and then we've done meeting dates. That's all I have.
Okay, next we have Mike LaRock. Huh?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I put on the agenda, I had a relative representative from the Fairbanks family ask me to present on one of the relatives. It's James D. Fairbanks. He's been honored with naming of a ship in Washington, DC on February 21st at 10:30. So I'm gonna go ahead, and she asked me to read his bio real quick just to give, and I think we put it up on the board too. So I'll go through it as quickly as I can. So Forest Master Chief Fairbanks is a Chippewa Indian. He was born and raised on the White Earth Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota. After graduating from high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps in November 1970. After completing basic training at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, California, he received orders to 2nd Battalion, 11th Marines, Camp Pendleton, California. Corporal Fairbanks was honorably discharged in September 1972. As a civilian, Master Chief Fairbanks was employed with American Iron and Supply Company as a welder and a union steward until December 1976. He returned to active duty in the U.S. Navy in January 1977. and was assigned to Amphibious Construction Battalion 2, Little Creek, Virginia. After completing his 2-year tour, he was honorably discharged in January 1979. He then returned to work for American Iron and Steel Supply in Minneapolis, Minnesota until August 1986. CMD-CM Fairbanks re-enlisted in the U.S. Navy September 1986 and was assigned to NMCB-1, Gulfport, Mississippi until February 1990. He received orders to the Naval Construction Training Center, Gulfport, Mississippi. He transferred to NMCB 133, where he served until January 1999. He then reported to the Naval Construction Training Center in March of 1999 and served as a Command Master Chief until May of 2001. He reported to NMCB 1 May 2001 and served with the 1st and the Finest until December 2002, and then transferred to the 22nd Naval Construction Regiment. After completing a 3-year tour, he was selected as a Force Master Chief for the Seabees and is currently serving with the NAVFAC GCOM in Washington, D.C. Master Chief Fairbanks is a graduate of the U.S. Navy Senior Enlisted Academy, Class 85, Green Group. He has earned his Associate's Arts degree from the University of Phoenix, Arizona. Let's see, Master Chief Fairbanks is designated a CB Combat Welfare and Master Training Specialist. His awards include the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Award, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals, 3, Army Commendation Medals, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, and various services and unit awards. This was published in 2014. The representative from the family asked me to just let everybody know that, let's see here. I think it's on my other phone. The naming ceremony will be on, let's see. Naming ceremony is 2/21 at 10:30 at the National Museum of American Indians, Washington, D.C. There's no press release until 2/21, according to the Secretary of Navy. Just let you know that the press release will be done at that time. What they wanted to relate to the MCT and all the bands is that they're requesting that if you could send either a tribal council member or a representative to bring your flag and post your flag at the naming ceremony. So I think that's about it. That's what and if anybody needs any of this information, I can send it over to you. I think Michael's got all the information. He can send it out to the TEC members and all the tribes if you wanted to send it out to them. What I sent you this year. Yeah. So, but yeah, the family is very honored with this ceremony, and there's only, I believe, I'm going to talk a little bit off script, but I believe there's only 4 or 5 or 6 maybe of indigenous people, 5 of them that have ships named in their name. And I don't have any information on the actual ship, but I can. It's I believe it's a tug. Hold on a second here. It's let me see here. But anyway, I can send it over to you guys too. But it's a great honor. James Fairbanks is he's an enrolled member of the White Earth Nation, so it's very good. And the family wanted me to put that out to the MCT. Miigwech, everybody.
Miigwech, Mike. What a high honor for a dedicated person to be having a ship named after him. That's on. Oh my God, it's just unreal to see that. But kudos to the family, and if Michael can send that information to each tribe, and if they can have someone attend to post our colors with them, that would be awesome.
Yeah, James's sister is Pam Fairbanks, who worked for the tribe, worked for Honor the Earth for a while and stuff like that. So, but yeah, she's the one that requested that I give the information out. So, And if anybody needs her information, her contact information, she would have a lot more information than we have here, so.
Make
We
good
with
for
you, Leah.
sharing that, Mike, and having the family request that. It's an honor. It'd be an honor to send someone.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I can go back to the meeting dates just real quick.
Oh, Lenny.
I know. I will, if I can just make a recommendation for people to look at their calendars. The Leech Lake meeting right now is scheduled for July 30th and 31st. But with the 31st being Halloween, I'm wondering if we can move it to July 29th and 30th.
Okay. You would have to come in
October, I'm
costume to
sorry,
the
yeah,
TEC meeting.
What?
You'd have to come in a Halloween costume to the TEC meeting. Okay,
Everybody already thinks we're scary enough.
29th and 30th then for the Leech Lake meeting, chickens.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that
29th and
okay?
30th. They don't want to meet on
October, I meant October, yeah.
October.
29th and 30th. Yeah. Okay, Miigwech.
Put out a Halloween judging contest and everything. And anyway, okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Fine Day. Okay, no other business here. So, oh, Kevin, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
I just think before we adjourn that we need to go back to this conversation that happened earlier today about the delegations and this issue about disenrollment. I think some clarity has to be brought forward. Miigwech.
If I can just make one point on that issue again, going back to the delegations, I think concern about amendments to the enrollment ordinance. I had asked Beth and Joel, and they confirmed for me that there are no amendments that have been drafted or that have been written yet, but that there's a process that's beginning to move forward that was discussed, where there will be a committee, not the tribal executive committee, but a group of people who will meet and look at the ordinance and look at updating it and revising it, which is part of an ongoing process to ensure not to change any constitutional requirements, but just to ensure that the ordinance adequately reflects the current practices of the bands and the tribe as it relates to an ordinance, as it relates to implementation of the ordinance and the constitutional requirements. And so we just want to clarify that point, that there's a process that is just starting, just beginning. There has not been any proposed amendments or changes to the ordinance that have actually been put in writing yet, or even as far as I know, fully discussed. But that's what the job of this committee will be to do, will be to work on that and to be involved in that. And if there are members of the Constitution delegation who want to be involved in that, I think that's fine as well, you know, but it's this idea that, you know, we have to, we're not going to look at an ordinance while we're waiting for a secretarial election process to move forward. I think that kind of thinking is what stops us from moving forward on a lot of different fronts. And so anyway, but just for clarification purposes, that's where things are at right now, trying to move forward with the secretarial election, but also we still have the operations that we're currently working on that go on a day-to-day basis. So anyway, I think that's a clarification that I wanted to provide on that at least. Miigwech.
Okay, any other?
Yep.
Michael?
Just a quick comment. I would actually like to see that 3215 become a priority, especially the education portion of it, because we seem to always put too many things on the table and we don't ever finish what we put out there. 3215 needs to get taken care of. If it's at the BIA level, we need to take care of it by meeting with the BIA and getting that taken care of. But I want to see this education piece get out. The people need to know exactly what it is and not to be confused with whatever else is on that referendum. 3215 is already, it needs to go forward. And we need to make sure that these delegates, that they work on it. I'd like to see that made priority. I really would. McWitch.
Okay, I appreciate your comments, Mike. Is what I was gonna mention as well. You know, it's 3215, was approved back in 14, 15 when it was approved with 11-0 vote. We reaffirmed it again a couple times, and it's already been approved at the Secretary of Interior, which took 18, 19 months for them to respond back. So what we're looking for here is a place to start on. I mean, the resolution 3215 is pretty clear cut. It's a pretty simple resolution to understand as a starting point in how it coordinates with Article 2 in the MCT Constitution that we're operating under today. So, we just keep going around and around and a new committee, another ad hoc committee or whatever, okay. Maybe we should get a separate viewpoint from them and then join up, with the delegation committee that's been working on this. Otherwise, things get so, so confusing, and we can't fix this with one resolution. Like I stated many times, it has to be a phase and a process on how we continue to move on this. Like April made mention, I think it was Grand Portage, how we can work in tandem with the delegation committee. So that's the way Leech Lake, wants to move on this as just a starting point. So I don't know if I have to make a motion, for Leech Lake, and the other 5 bands, they're sovereign tribes, and I want to respect their, them being sovereign. And so if they choose to adopt 3215, that's on their membership and their leadership. But I at Leech Lake, we want to start with 3215. And I don't know if we have to get approval from the TEC here to start that process, and how many years it's going to take to do that. But I want to see Leech Lake start on 3215. I mean, the Wilder Research survey was pretty self-explanatory. I don't believe we have to continue over analyzing these issues. They've been thoroughly vetted, and it costing thousands of dollars, that we have limited funds with the MCT now to call for another survey or to do more analyze. We want to start on this. So I just want to, I guess if I have to call for a motion from the TEC, if that's what we need to do. I don't know the real legalities of all this. I wasn't involved with council at the time when the 2 tribes put a moratorium on their membership requirements, or how that process was done. That's a sovereign decision between each tribe. If the tribal leadership and their memberships decide that's what they want to do, that should be their decision. We all talk about that's what sovereignty is all about, right? We sit here and I don't want to influence other tribes on how they should kind of proceed with their enrollment criteria. That's not our responsibility. That's not our right. And nobody wants to hold anybody back. And we could continue to be a part of the MCT. Just because we do our own individual enrollment process doesn't mean that we're going to be stepping away from the MCT. No, it don't. So I don't know if I have to call for a motion for this body here to say, okay, Leech Lake, you guys can move on resolution 3215. Okay. Yeah, it's on the webpage, and I think we had some copies here. Yeah, starting with the federally recognized Chippewa blood. It's still remaining at 1/4, 25%. just as a starting point. Yeah, it's going to, for all federally recognized Ojibwe Chippewa blood throughout the United States. Hello?
I need a clarification. If I remember right, it says all federally recognized Ojibwe, all federally recognized Chippewa, and all federally recognized Anishinaabe.
Okay, Farron's request here, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting, for Leech Lake to be on the agenda for the next MCT meeting. I have to apologize. Are we done with the clarification stuff now? I was looking at an old agenda, and Deanna Drift, I am so sorry. I did not know that you were on the new agenda. So my apologies to you. We do have adverse childhood experiences yet on our agenda with Deanna Drift. Sorry, Dee.
No worries, Kath. Boozhoo Anishinaabe. For those who don't know me, my name is Deanna Drift. I am a Bois Forte tribal member. And thank you for taking your time to hear us out today. And I am co-presenting with Chief Kent, and I will go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Dee, and I'm humbled and honored to be a part of this meeting today. Dee invited me to talk on adverse childhood experiences. I've been a police officer and currently the chief of police in Alexandria, Minnesota for 26 years. And for the last 6 years, I have the honor of understanding and facilitating discussions surrounding adverse childhood experiences. So Dee and I are just going to go through, this presentation can go anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. No worries, we're not going to be here for 4 to 6 hours. We're going to try to just do kind of a soapbox speech of some common language of what ACES is and what it is not. So bear with us. Dee and I have worked together on some practice for this, but we haven't actually met in person. It'd be much better to be in person with all of you. But if you can hold on for another 10-15 minutes before you adjourn, we'll try to get you out of here before the weather turns too bad.
Perfect. Thank
go
you, Scott. Can I get screen sharing capability? We do have a PowerPoint.
You should have it, Dee.
There it is. Okay, how's that? Go ahead, Scott, can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, if you want to click on your toolbar, the present, oh, maybe you're there.
I think I'm-
If you want to go to the next slide, Dee.
We're having a little trouble hearing you, Scott. Is there any way you could speak up a little?
Is it any better if I speak louder?
Yes.
How's that? I'll just shy of yelling. Some of the stuff we talk about today might be a little bit sensitive, and if you have any sensitivity to anything, we're not intentionally trying to be insensitive, but there might be some emotions that come about through some of the things we talk about. So feel free to take a deep breath, leave the room, whatever you may need to do to help with that. Go ahead. We're gonna, one thing that we've been doing in the Alexandria Police Department since we became aware of what ACES is for so many years, we approach situations as we wonder what's wrong with the people we're working with or the people in crisis. And that was a common question, is what is wrong with you? And we have stopped asking that question, and we're trying to go the upstream approach and say, what's happened to you? What has brought you to this point in your life that got you here? So we're looking at more root problems. So we develop more sustainable solutions when we look at what ACES is. So we want to change the conversation and ask what happened to you rather than what's wrong with you. So that'll come to light here as we go. The ACE score, we talk about a score, and there's a 10-question survey that surrounds, we're not going to do in this short time, we're not going to do the test or the evaluation. But what it's looking at are situations in a household for a child growing up. Was there psychological, physical, sexual, emotional abuse, neglect, a household dysfunction, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental illness, incarcerated family member? Those are questions that we ask in those 10-question survey to evaluate what an ACE score is. And that's just to get a baseline, but no way does that score mean much of anything other than placing how many adverse experiences children had through their young lives coming up to the age of 18. Go ahead, Dee Dee. What does an ACE score tell us? What it is not, it's not a diagnostic tool, it's not a screening tool, it's not a predictor of individuals' behavior, and it certainly is not a fun quiz. What ACEs is a historical tool, a communication tool, and most importantly, common language that we can all use. So when we talk about ACEs and how to look at lifting kids up that have experienced adverse experiences, we have some common language. And how we do that for us at the Alexandria Police Department, we work with our school social workers. So it's not uncommon for us to go into a domestic situation in the middle of the night. We have a Handle with Care program that specifically targets ACEs. And when we see or have kids that we deal with those experiences, when police come in, we notify the school social workers. We want to find a safe place for those kids. So many times, in the middle of the night, we might wake these kids up and they're seeing all of this trauma happening in front of them. Then they go to school and we're going to see behavioral outbursts. We're going to see yelling, throwing, temper tantrums, and sleeping in the classrooms, poor grades. So what we communicate back to the schools with the social workers is, hey, this child may have had a traumatic experience last night. Just give them a lift up instead of sending them to the principal's office for detention. They might need a little bit of a reprieve. They might need to eat lunch in a quiet place. They might need to take a deep breath, but we want to try to find a safe place for them rather than a disciplinary situation. So we're looking at those situations where kids are affected differently. Okay. And how do we know that students are experiencing adverse experiences in the home? We look at Minnesota student surveys, and we're looking just at a capture of 8th, 9th, and 11th graders. Survey sample of 170,000 statewide sample. And by those survey results that we've looked at historically, these are the most recent ones. I think they're from 2019. But what they tell us, and we're not going to get into the details of what the graphs and charts say, what the information tells us is kids still and have always experienced childhood trauma. Dee Dee and I aren't here today to say that we're going to stop this. We're not living in a glass bulb that says we can stop it. We know that kids across this state, across the country, are going to continue to experience childhood experiences. But what is it as leaders in our community? What can we do to help when we see it or recognize it to help kids process it different and give them a safe place? Okay, next slide. And again, this is the frequency from the student survey results. This is results from 8th, 9th, and 11th graders. And these are just percentages of what kids report out. And any student survey is only good as the data and the accuracy of students reporting it. And in summary, this just shows that kids are experiencing trauma within their households. Next slide.
So now that we know youth are reporting ACE scores, let's take a look at what a high ACE score may mean for adults. We could go on down the list of a long list of negative health and social outcomes, but I wanted to focus on two that are affecting our MMIR epidemic. The first is drug use and overdoses. Research by the Minnesota Department of Health shows that African Americans are 2 times more likely to die from an overdose, and American Indians are 7 times more likely. Why? They cite systemic oppression and inequitable access to resources. In addition, historical and intergenerational trauma. I'm sorry, I just got to pop up for another Zoom meeting. That distracted me. Okay, so in addition, historical and intergenerational trauma continue to adversely affect Am I back? Sorry, I lost the screen again. Okay, here I am. So the boarding school era and our current out-of-home placement rates are two sides of the same coin. I took a trauma-informed mandated reporter training in October of last year, using a racial justice lens. I'm sorry.
PowerPoint didn't show up on the screen.
Okay. I got logged out and then I can't see you guys. I only see my PowerPoint. So technical difficulties, huh? Okay. How is that? Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll start again. So the boarding school era and our current out-of-home placement rates are two sides of the same coin, so to speak. I attended a trauma-informed mandated reporter training in October of last year. Using a racial justice lens, Miriam Itzkovitz from the William Mitchell School of Law gave us some insight on how to disrupt the out-of-home placement crisis. Some of the things she mentioned is that Minnesota is 15 times higher than any other state for maltreatment reports. There are 2 times more reports than necessary, and these reports contain bias and racism. Her solution is for any mandated reporter to call and give a CPS assessor a hypothetical scenario before making an official report. She urges those who are mandated to report to consult with colleagues before doing so, become knowledgeable about ACEs, educate the public, and most importantly, support the parents. If trauma can be inherited from one generation to the next, then so can love, emotional intelligence, and wisdom. The top 3 reporters in the state Miriam had mentioned were law enforcement, educators, and medical professionals. Mitigating efforts of ACEs. What can tribes do? And this is the reason why we are here, is to just generate some ideas on what you guys can do as tribal leaders, as tribal staff, what others can do, and how we can come together. So tribes can implement ACEs training for tribal staff who provide direct services to clients, possibly an HR component, advocate for tribal police, corrections, or jail staff to become trained in ACEs, push for child protection citizen review panels statewide. The statute requires 3 in the state of Minnesota, and that is currently all that we have. It would be nice to see Carlton County, St. Louis County, Beltrami County, and all of them have citizen review panels when it comes to child protection. And peer support, parent mentor groups can be developed in your tribal community. And what others can do is they can advocate for child response agencies to become knowledgeable in ACEs, law enforcement, judges, child protection, public health. I did recently take a training and I learned that Carlton County jail staff are all trained in ACE interface. We can push for an increase in behavioral urgent care facilities with a built-in prevention component to address the overdose epidemic. And I am the director of tribal projects for Family Wise Services, which is located, our home base is located in Minneapolis. And we do train tribal staff in becoming ACE interface. It is the train the trainer model. And there's my contact information if anyone is interested. I do want to give a shout out to Fond du Lac, who did implement the, and I don't know, I'm not aware of any other tribes, but I do know Fond du Lac implemented this into their programming, and they did develop a community resiliency plan. Now we're open for questions or comments.
Dee Dee, a lot of the tribal leaders are asking if this PowerPoint presentation is available and if it could be sent to the tribal chairs or secretary treasurers.
For a small fee. No, I'm kidding. Of course. I'll be happy to send it.
They said your check is in the mail.
Racing time.
I know that Kevin approached me, or Chairman Dupuy approached me and said that their social services is already using this. This looks like a very good program. Kevin, do you want to just elaborate a little bit on it, or?
I also believe that Leech Lake is also using it to the extent I don't know. But I do know that social services have started doing it and they moved it into with also members of the police department. I think it grows to a point where and when I talked to Dee Dee when she came to Fond du Lac, is that for the bands who don't have something in this effect, it's really to look at this model, build something for their own. If they chose to do that within their own system, they can call it whatever they want. But it really gives a kind of a guideline or a principle to how we address these situations. And when you at the tiers and levels that it is, I took the test myself. I think everybody should, if you have a chance. I'm way up there. And I think that anybody who is indigenous or native, living in a native community, as native in general, we're going to be pretty high on the scale for this. It's just because of all the inequities that we grew up with and all these other principles that is, and just who we are as native people. But I think it's a very good tool to monitor what you're doing, but to put it in a perspective. And then when we get into the different tiers, it's so much easier to, if it's done right and you have the resources and the capabilities of doing it, or the capacity to do it, you're able to send people to the direction that is really, really needed. And it gives us a data principle that one thing that we're always arguing about is data. And this is one data that we can retain ourselves. That's very, very important. So them are the things I take away from it that I think is an advantage to the tribes. Miigwech.
Gee, Miigwech, Chairman Dupuy, for sharing that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Deanna or Chief Kent? That was a great presentation. Thank you so much for bringing this forward. And like I said, your check's in the mail, so if you could send that PowerPoint, well, we'd appreciate it. Gee, Miigwech,
right.
and have a good day.
Miigwech, everyone.
Okay, and then we also have information. Bobby, is that you? Chippewa Federation meeting? It's just a notice on the Chippewa Federation meeting. When is that?
Language symposiums on the 17th and the meetings on the.
Language symposium on the 17th and the Chippewa Federation meeting is the 18th at Lac du Flambeau, if anybody's interested in attending. Miigwech, Bobby and Lenny. Oh, there's two hands. Okay. I don't know who they are. I can't read that. Carol. Go ahead, Carol Janik.
Thank you. Somebody followed up on the idea that somebody from the Constitutional Reform Group joined the ad hoc committee. I think that's a good idea personally. I think that should be brought back to the constitutional delegates. And I think that's important because it's a time that we start working together on this reform. We request information so we're aware of what happened in the past so that we can move forward and integrate those things that are good for our people or change things that are not. I would like to make just a short comment about the earlier conversation. Part of the problem is sometimes there's a miscommunication or things are read in a way that maybe weren't expected to. But our comment about, use of ordinances, for example, we've read things and heard things from people, and just not ordinary people, people on committees and such, about this ordinance being used. For example, even in the documents in the minutes that April provided us last night, and you can take a look at the second to the last page. It's page 2, minutes of October 25th. This is the reasons why we had the concerns. One of them, because this has happened before. It says Chairperson Dupe offered remarks that the Constitution allows us to put in ordinances, recommends that provisions can change the Constitution now. Now that implies to us that, the ordinance could change the Constitution. If that's not what was meant, then maybe that should be changed in the minutes before they're actually, but you already voted on approving them. But that's the dilemma we're in. We hear these things, we read these little clips, and we ask questions without answers. And so we move forward, and the only thing we can do is give our own impression. But in that same page, it asks, the Constitution delegates to come forward to help with the trust of the people, to get them out to vote. I think, we have to begin to build trust between our delegates and the TEC and the RBCs, and work together. And then I just, since we're asking questions and trying to be open about everything, the 3215 resolution, obviously I wasn't around then, and requests for information around that issue, we were trying to figure out what the process was, how that resolution get enacted, obviously by TEC, but was there a voice of the people? Was there a referendum connected with that? And then was that resolution gone through the process of Article 15 of the Constitution and had an approval by the Secretary of Interior? It's those sorts of questions that we like to ask, so we know we're on the right process and we're following the Constitution and understanding the Constitution. The other aspect about that referendum is that if you were reading the Constitution, in the Constitution in Article 14, referendums, says that the process is either 20% of a vote after a petition by the people or an affirmative vote by the TEC, and then it is submitted for a referendum. And then it says that if the ordinance follows that process, the referendum is a majority vote. There isn't any requirement for any percentage of vote. It says majority vote cast in such referendum shall be conclusive and binding on the Tribal Executive Committee. So we've been wondering and asking, how did this get to be a non-binding resolution? And so these are the things that we'd like to work together on to try to figure out, what is the process? We're both going in two different directions in our thoughts in our heads, but we have to talk through these things. Excuse me. So that was the other question about the referendum. Some people support it, some people don't, but we don't know what the process was. Thank you.
Miigwech, Carol. Next we have Tammy. Tammy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, Miigwech, I just was very excited listening to from the two people from Family Wise and the ACES program, which I'm now hearing about and learning about. And I just wanted to mention that they did speak about systemic oppression. And to me, everything that they presented very much excited me because it's all involved also with the historical trauma boarding schools, the doctrine of discovery, the lateral violence. And so I will implore you, please, I almost beg you to please work with that organization, and also for that organization to think about how you can also include traditional values, traditional ceremonies, and things of that nature, because, we're losing a whole generation of our people. And I see it out here every single day. And so I don't want to bring any negativity. I'm just very excited that they are here. And I would, like to see something with them or what they're doing. And that police chief of Alexandria, thank you so much. And to model something after what they are doing. So I think that's very, very important. I just want to say that. And thank you very much, Miigwech.
G. Miigwech, Tammy. And next we have Don. Can you hear us, Don?
Yeah, I just
Okay,
needed
we
to
can hear you.
Yeah, just a moment to unmute. Yeah, so I just want to bring that old business to forefront. I just didn't want the meeting to end before having a chance. So I just want to make sure I don't butt in here while somebody still wants to talk about ACES.
Okay,
So-
what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so old business. For number one, I guess we've had old business that was very important, that didn't get the information was not delivered in such a way where we had to find out kind of nonchalantly. Land transfer bill to be named. So with that being said, there's some old business such as the General Assembly. I'd like to see that go forward, and was wondering, has there been discussion? Is it going to happen soon? Those are the questions I have for that. And also, Gaza. Are you anybody talking about as a sovereign nation speaking up for the people of Gaza? And also, most importantly, our waters here today, impaired waters, not more important than the other things I've talked about, but our impaired waters, MPCA is taking comments until January 12th, 2024. So this is for our members also to know this is happening. And if you want to know more about it, go to waterlegacy.org, and it talks all about the impaired waters in the comment period, and it will guide you along to make your comment. Take note, tomorrow is the due date on that. And I didn't know, wasn't able to attend Natural Resources yesterday, so I didn't know if there was talk about the impaired waters comment period. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Don. With regard, oh, go ahead.
I just had a couple quick things.
You have to use the mic, sir.
I just, when you mentioned sovereignty, I was just wondering, and this is a question for all of you. Does sovereignty lie within the individual or as a collective, as a group? Kevin, Lenny?
Since you threw my name up first, it's both. It's both to a certain extent.
It's both?
It's both to a certain extent.
Explain that.
Well, say you're the only one left in a band or tribe, right? It becomes an individual principle. So under almost principles of rights, right? So it's not always a collective right. Sometimes it's an individual right. Sometimes it's not always an individual right. Sometimes it's a collective right. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I can't explain it any way farther than that, but I think that's the simplest way to explain it to that part. So I believe sovereignty is held under the principle of a governmental structure. Or we can look at our Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution, and it will tell you that it's a quasi-sovereign judicial government. But what does that mean? So what is the interpretation of quasi-judicial government or under that principle? who's worded into a document under that principle still has sovereignty under under a certain structure. I think the confusing part, and this is my opinion and my opinion only, is no matter what form of government you're at, even if you had a traditional tribal council, I say again, a traditional tribal council, it's still the principle of sovereignty is held by individuals, collective headmen, communities under that manner, but they report to a structure higher than. So no matter if it's a traditional form of government or it's in a government adopted by the IRA, or however you want to call it, there's a governmental structure there that has the ability to regulate within the confines of their own reservation. Just like a traditional tribal government would have to do to set up rules, regulations, call it whatever you want. Your clan system was involved at that point in time, but there's still an individual right to that principle. And that right, I'm using our document, is covered in Article 13. So there is rights under that principle, and that also means sovereignty to a certain extent. So that's why I'm saying both, if that makes any sense.
What's your thought, Lenny? Wraps it up.
I think that was a good explanation. It's not a black and white issue where you can say in every single circumstance, this is how it applies, but you're asking everybody so we can pass them.
Okay, thank you. A good question, Todd. I like to think that it's an individual, thing to approach, because as a federally recognized tribal member, and with my own tribal membership number, I look at myself as a individual sovereign person sometimes, but at the same time, I was elected as the tribal chairman in 2016. So it's kind of hard to for me to elaborate, on this here, because everybody has a right to recognize their sovereignty in a way that they feel is the right way to do it. Like say, we have a right to hunt and gather and fish, as our sustaining ways of our ancestors and relatives did, before the treaties were established. You could go on hunt and trap, gather, you could do whatever you want, and nobody, there was nobody out there to regulate us, give us tickets or fines. It was a way of life. As times changed and we progressed into where we are today, I guess we use different standards, and being a part of the MCT umbrella. No way does that renege our own individual 1855 treaty rights we have as individual tribes, but yet we're still a part of this umbrella here where, a lot of, they want us to be a uniformed. They want us to do things all the same way. And we don't always fit on that Rubik's Cube the same way, and to me, that's part of our self-autonomy. To govern our own respected tribal lands, in the best interest we feel is for our people, with the consultation of our elders and community people as well. So it's a good discussion to have though, and I know you've always exercised your sovereignty the way you felt was right. And you challenged, the system. And that's a part of exercising our sovereignty is we challenge things that we feel that we're not really subject to. If that's I hope I didn't explain it the wrong way to you, but that's why I look at it, Todd.
I got my. Buju, I believe individually and collectively, like as tribes or sovereign nations, I really believe in it that way. And individually as a tribal member, I can exercise that sovereignty myself. And so I'm also for individual and governmental or group, I guess you could say sovereigns, but tribes are sovereigns.
Miigwech, Kathy, I was always taught by elders and some of the professors at UMD in the Master of Tribal Administration and Governance program that as individuals we're not sovereign, but as tribes together, we are sovereign. And the definition in the Western world of sovereignty comes from that papal bull from the Catholic Church way back when. And so that's where like the US, England, all came with this idea of sovereignty, right? But if you ask me, what is the meaning of sovereignty? It's the ability to have self-determination. It's the ability of tribes to self-determine what our people need and to be able to provide for those resources. And we do that through enrollment, language, management of our natural resources and protection. And so I guess my answer differs a little bit more because when I think about, does the band have sovereign immunity? Yes. Does April McCormick have her own sovereignty and sovereign immunity? I don't believe that I possess that, but I do have my own self-determination to provide for my family or as a tribal leader, make decisions to help our people. And so I think that that's inherent. It's inherent in who we are as an Anishinaabe to make sure that we're always thinking in that way that we've been taught before the Western models were supposedly provided for us. I think that's always been inherent in who we are as we make decisions. In our language, I'm learning language, but it's not gonna gay. It means to decide with one another and out of respect with one another. And so I always try to share that with the state and federal agencies because that root means you're making an action together and out of respect. So those are kind of some of my thoughts on that. I know you're going to pass the mic around, but before I just let that go, I just wanted to tell Don, we did address the impaired waters and we're going to issue joint comments for Friday. And we have several joint letters coming out of the subcommittee. We're also going to address the site-specific standards and their lack of protection for impaired waters. And then as far as the info on the land transfer, President Chavers addressed that in October's meeting. It's documented in the minutes, so there is no action, no reintroduction of that land transfer issue. And then let's see, General Assemblies was noted in the minutes, but to my knowledge, we have not taken action as a committee or within the MCT to discuss that. I do know that that is on the executive director's radar as an important topic for MCT and development within the strategic planning she's prepared. As far as Gaza, I've not collectively spoke about this issue with anyone on TEC. So I just wanted to do that before we go on with the mic passing.
Thank you, April. Yeah, and I do realize the land transfer issue. I was there at the last meeting, but I'm just saying I like to see that old business is still on the agenda. Not sure why it hasn't made it. It's been a few meetings since I've addressed old business for the agenda. So thank you.
Miigwech, Don, we've got that noted this time, so for sure we'll get it on there. Miigwech.
I'd like to hear what you got to say, Mike. Go ahead. No, I'd like to hear it. Come on.
Chairman Fairbanks usually speaks for the tribe, so I'm gonna give it over to him. Well, I guess what the question was, and I know the mic went around the tables here, and what Lenny and Kevin, kind of said is, I know that's all of us are different, I guess, in a way, and I know that we see things different lenses. I know that, but when it comes to our inherent right, our sovereignty, our issues that, like what the courts say, treaties are the supreme law of the land. But the other part about it is what Kevin said and Lenny said is quasi-sovereign, and that's what I was taught in college. That we have to work along with our state and federal partners. So I know it's unique. I know that there's different aspects are different parts of what part that we're talking about. And I just think that,
it's a good thing for nations. But I think when it comes to like, you know, other parts of our, maybe just even our constitution itself, or even our lands, our tribal lands, our reservation, our homelands, our ceded territories, there's different areas that need to be addressed, so. Miigwech.
Well, I guess you can see, everybody has their own take on what sovereignty is. If we went around the table here like we just did, everybody has a different view on it. My view is that Grand Portage is a sovereign nation. That's who I represent. We have to insert our sovereignty on a daily basis on everything that we do almost, whether it's dealing with the state or the federal government. So that's what I got.
Doesn't quasi sovereignty, doesn't that only apply to the RBC? Because when you take an oath to the federal or to the United States. Then second, you take an oath to the to the Constitution from the tribe. Doesn't that only apply to the MCT? The people aren't quasi. You guys are. Isn't that correct? Okay, thank you.
Hold on a second, Lynn, hold on. I just got the representative from the Fairbanks family just sent me a quick little text. I want to share that with the people. When we talked about James Fairbanks in the naming ceremony, it says James will be the third native for the Navajo rescue ship named. He's the third one. So I just wanted to make sure everything was clear, so.
Sweet.
Miigwech, everybody.
Thank you, Mike. Lenny made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Michael Rock. All in favor signify by. Go
Can I
ahead.
bring one thing up while we have the second? The comment that, and I can't remember your name, apology for one of the Fond du Lac delegation. I'm gonna kind of express that statement. But not hearing the whole statement is where the issue comes into play. So when I said this over and over and over, that under Article 2, there are 2 requirements. And one is set as a minimal requirement. The second requirement is to just be a United States citizen. So an opinionated principle is to change the Constitution. Do you have to change the Constitution to lower the minimal requirement? Or do you have to change both to add or higher on the requirement? Or is that something that can be done internal? The other part of it is that the conversations that keep coming back from the delegation principle is we have a date for a secretary election. And the things that are being brought from the TEC, just like it was earlier, that the TEC, it's a violation of the Constitution to change an ordinance. Well, the way the Constitution is written today, that's absolutely not true. If you're going to change something under Article 15, because you brought that up and in a review, if you look at Article 12 and you look at Article 14 on what it says, a referendum can be voted upon by the TEC by a majority of vote to have a referendum. That referendum then goes out to the membership, and the membership make that the decision based on that referendum. It's not the TEC who does that. So the comment that you made, I have to disagree because the Constitution says something else. Article 12 of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution is a secretary election. And no matter how that's worded of the 30% entitled to vote, the TEC can say, we're going to have a secretary election. The membership vote on that secretary election. Them are the ones who are carrying that vote forward, whether they agree to it or they vote for it or they don't vote for it. So there is no manipulation principle from here to that using Article 12 and Article 14 of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. So I'm really confused on why that keeps coming back and say, we can't, the TEC can't change the ordinance without changing the Minnesota or have a secretary election. So I need to ask this question. In 1934, when the organization was done and the Constitution was put into place and ratified in 64, were the ordinances put in place then? And was there a secretary election to do that? No, there wasn't. Because you don't have to have a secretary election to change the ordinance unless that ordinance is going to change the Constitution. And that's what Article 15 of the Matter in Review is. So I just need to ask this simple question again. What part of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution is the TEC violating by making an ordinance? Article 12 and Article 14 gives the point of an ordinance. If the ordinance is going to be changed, that's going to affect the Constitution or change the Constitution, then it must be voted on by its membership. But the other thing I'm going to throw out there is the secretary election that has been already moving forward with. Nothing has came back from the delegations to add to that secretary election to put on the ballot. And I've brought this forward to the delegations. I brought it to you several different times. Now we're looked at it and said, well, the TEC is not doing this or the TEC is doing that. You have the ability in your hand to make a decision to bring something forward that can be part of that secretary election. And there's nothing there. But if the idea is to have the TEC to do that, then the TEC is going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But I'm giving the options and the ideas what I know and understand. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form that I've been violating that. I've been giving that pieces out. I've been saying there's things that you can go after, but without anything added to the structure or bringing anything added to that, whatever is going to be on the secretary election ballot, I have to sit back and go, I'm going to get blamed. We're going to get blamed because it's not happening. But at the beginning of all of this, and it was stated earlier now that everybody wants to work together. But prior to that, the discussion was to have the TEC stay out of this makeup. And I have so far. So I want to understand how I'm getting blamed for something when I'm told to stay away from it. And I have. Which?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. So a second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Meeting is adjourned. And the reason, we do have some awful weather for our travelers heading on the North Shore. So we want them to get going and be safe on the road. So Gee Miigwech, everybody.